Wow. Welcome. Quick intro. Like one of the surprise things always after episode 48 is how quick it goes live, or sometimes how there's a lag, but it went quick today. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to episode 48. We have a lot of firsts tonight in the basement here. It is Pours with Patriots. Don't be thrown off with Dan's attire. So, this is the first person we've ever had in the basement that's wearing a jacket and a collared shirt. Feel completely
I'm just trying to church this thing up a little bit.
Up. He says he's not going to swear either, so that'll be a first. I think on Pours with Patriots. Another first, our first 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment veteran, and our first Air Force and Army veteran. So a lot of firsts today.
There we go. I think you're welcome. I'm not sure, but I think you're welcome.
I mean, some of them I was making fun of, though, but no. But
bring it on.
But no, I thank you, Dan, for joining us. It's our first time meeting, actually. A few minutes ago, so we've talked, and so it's always exciting to have someone I've never met on the podcast, and one of our mutual friends will be joining us here shortly.
Hopefully, it doesn't make too much noise coming in.
Yeah, we'll if everyone swings to the left on that, if that's us that's looking at him, he knows better to be this late, but we'll give him a little bit of a hard time after. But like I said, I'm here with retired Sergeant First Class Dan Malone, United States Army, and we'll start off with a quote that I'm pretty sure that you know. You should probably be able to say this without me saying it. A part of the Night Stalker Creed. The mission and my precious cargo are my concern. I will never surrender. I will never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy, and under no circumstances will I ever embarrass my country. Gallantly will I show the world and the elite forces I support that a Night Stalker is especially selected and a well-trained soldier. I serve with the memory and the pride of those who have gone before me, for they love to fight, fought to win, and would rather die than quit. Night Stalkers don't quit. So, welcome. You probably still got that memorized?
Yeah, that part of it. It's a little bit longer than that. I could probably struggle through it, but the end of it for sure.
Yeah.
They love to fight, fought to win, and would rather die than quit. Is they're more than just words in the unit. Every member of the 160th truly believes that. We were gifted the motto NSDQ, Night Stalkers don't quit. I don't know if we're planning on talking about that at all, but that our ground force partners that we supported back in our early days saw us in action, and they were like, man, these Night Stalkers, they just don't quit. They will keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. So we take it very seriously. We take a lot of pride in that statement, and they're great words to live by.
Yeah, and I had the whole thing originally typed down to do the whole Night Stalker, but it took up a whole page. I'm like, that's a lot to say. I did add another quote to it earlier on your announcement for the podcast yesterday. So there are a lot of great quotes. If you haven't read the whole thing, you definitely should. But like Dan said, the last couple sentences hit hard for the community. Also for, I think every soldier or every service member, those are, some pretty strong words to live by. So
for sure.
Thank you. I was hoping you were going to belt it out. You started there at the end. I like it. It's awesome. So let's start off a little bit. Like, I'm going to get to know you too, which is exciting. This is like the longest conversation. We chatted a little bit before, so I've got your bio, but I'm excited to hear your story. So you, like me, grew up as an Army brat or a military brat,
right? Yeah. Dad was in the Air Force. Spent 20 years in the Air Force. He's a prior enlisted guy. Spent some time at Pope Air Force Base originally. His family's from South Carolina, so being right there at Pope was pretty close to home for them. Then was assigned to D.C., Andrews Air Force Base, and worked as a admin guy in the Pentagon, and enter Dan into the story at this point in time. So I don't remember it. Was there for a couple of years, and during this time period, Dad had applied for a program called Operation Bootstrap, and he was able to go to school full time and finish his degree and apply for OCS and pilot training in the Air Force. Got selected to the program, commissioned, and then we moved to Mississippi to go through pilot training for about a year and a half down there. But yeah, then Dad finished out his career as a KC-135 pilot in the Air Force. Nice. So yeah, moved around a little bit. Not a lot, I would say, for the typical military family. We spent a lot of years in North Dakota, Grand Forks Air Force Base up in North Dakota. So
Middle of nowhere.
middle of nowhere, North Dakota. But it was fun as a kid, tons of snow all over the place and getting to play in that. And, I didn't have a social life as a kid at this point in time. So the fact that we're in the middle of nowhere is really irrelevant. There's the neighborhood kids there, and there's the military families, which, I guess being stationed in a location like that is really drives the military community together. So had lots of friends and, an enjoyable experience in North Dakota. And then there for 5 or 6 years. And then Dad got stationed in Middle Georgia um, at Warner Robins Air Force Base, and continued to fly there for a while with the air refueling wing. And then moved over towards the end of his career flying basically the same airframe, but for the CENTCOM staff, and flying like VIP flights for the CENTCOM leaders at the time. And this was mid to late 90s. He retired in 97 and ended up in South Bend, Indiana for a little while, which is where I graduated high school. And from there is where my military journey begins.
So back to North Dakota. You're a hunter now. Did you pick that up, that love for it then, or when did you start getting into your love of hunting?
No, actually, hunting didn't really happen until a lot later in life. And to be completely honest with you, I'm not the most experienced hunter. I have been a few times, and it's something that I have recently kind of fallen in love with. Just the peacefulness and being out in nature, and kind of putting the noise of life away. But that didn't happen really until much later in life. And there's a great story that we'll talk about with hunting a little bit later in
awesome.
the timeline.
Yeah, no, I didn't know if it was a young age. And,
no,
because a lot of times hunting, you find that the people I've talked to is it's something they started off young, and North Dakota would seem like it'd be a great place to be in the outdoors, and it's got to be some good hunting up there.
I'm sure there is. I have no idea though. I was in early elementary school, during my years.
That could have been the first time you took your first deer. Like
maybe,
you see some of those kids. Some of them now, those kids are getting out there early.
I think that's great that they're doing it. Learning at a young age.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I've talked about wanting to do that, but you said the same thing about getting out there, away from everything. And I just laugh at some hunters that I know. Like they're completely happy that if they don't ever harvest anything, they just get out there. Like you said, they're happy to. I don't know if they're doing it to get away from their family, their kids, their phone, work, or whatever. But it works for them, and I respect all the people. My friends are hunters because usually I get good stuff from it, like smokies and ground venison, and so
for sure.
And hopefully Matt's bringing us something as well too.
Hopefully, well, he needs to for showing up late, right?
Exactly right. Exactly. So you grew up Army family. So a new question I'm gonna throw out there for getting to know you is, as a kid growing up, do you have any childhood heroes?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I know this is going to sound really cliche, right? But I wasn't a big comic book fan or anything like that. I wasn't really into that kind of stuff growing up as a kid. And so the idea of a hero was not necessarily foreign to me, but it wasn't something that I pursued either. I did think some of the coolest things ever was, watching Dad land his plane and climb out of it. And, we would go out to the airfield all the time when he was coming back from a trip, and we'd watch the plane land, and the, crew vehicles and support vehicles would drive up, and they would get out, and they were in their flight suits. And I mean, for a kid at this point, in my life, that was pretty cool to see.
Right.
So, I mean, I really would have to say, like, heroic, heroism, and who is a hero for me at that age in life. I mean, it would have had to been my dad. He had his helmet from flight school when he was flying T-38s and T-37s, which are these sporty little jet trainers. In his office, he was able to keep it when he left pilot training. And I would put that thing on. I'd put that helmet on and the little oxygen mask over the front. And I'd run around the house thinking I was a pilot. So that would have to be the closest thing to a hero for me as a kid, is just seeing my dad and the guys that he worked with, and pilots in general. That was just the coolest thing to me.
Yeah, and I think that's for a kid going, military brat or Army brat. That's very very common. I think the same thing is you're surrounded by so many people doing amazing things that you're
Right.
always like, oh, look at that, that's so cool. My dad was a military policeman, so there was always that infatuation to see what he was doing and loving what he was doing. He didn't have a cool flight helmet. He had like handcuffs and all of the stuff that you can mess around with. And I think he had this like Korean. I think it was from Korea, like the old like. Remember the? I don't even know what it's made out of. It's like plexiglass. What is it? I'm looking at my dad right now. Those ugly black. There's a picture of it. I'll find it. But the MPs used to wear it. It was like the big goofy, like inside helmets of like inside the liners. They look like liners for the old helmets, and like they were all painted and stuff. And I remember that seeing that and messing with that, and like he had a nightstick, and you'd want to be messing around with stuff like that. No flight helmets.
Just pick that thing up and handcuff your friends and beat them with their nightstick, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Handcuff some stuff. Handcuff your friends. That's always a fun trick. Or mess with stuff you're not supposed to be messing with.
Right.
But I think that's a very common thing for us in the military, because you're growing up on military installations. At least I did. I didn't live off post, so you're seeing everybody. You're seeing all these different people who have done amazing things, and hear the stories. And it doesn't take very long to. It's not very hard to look and see people that are like, holy cow, that's a pretty cool.
It's
a pretty cool person.
Yeah. I mean, when you're not surrounded by that, on a daily basis, you would, you could understand somebody having, a baseball player or, some other person as their childhood hero. But man, nothing compares to like seeing your parents run around, in uniform and doing the military thing. To me, that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's interesting. I threw that in. I thought that'd be a good, and it's interesting. What's great when we do the podcast is how similar a lot of us have our experiences. My dad was in for 20 years as well, too, the moving around and different places, and growing up, and like you said before, just watching their career, and you just how part of you is like you're just kind of drawn to it in some way. So another thing about that, so I made fun of it a little bit, but Dan didn't originally join the Army. I mean, he did make one bad decision. No, but no, I'm kidding. But you decided initially to enlist in the Air Force. What was your thought behind that?
Well, I was 17. So, there wasn't too much thinking going on behind it. I just knew that, Dad was in the military and Dad was in the Air Force. And, my grandfather was in the Air Force as well. So there's family lineage here of service. And, there really wasn't, the Air Force was just better than everybody else. I mean, let's just be honest. If we really talk about it, we really look at it. They're the smartest. They're the best looking guys out there. And, they fly the coolest planes, right? And gals.
All joking aside, we like to make fun of the Air Force. We always will, but there is something to be said. There, it is. You generally do have to be a little bit smarter than everybody else. They do have better military installations generally.
Not generally.
Yeah,
come on. Let's just be
I can't hype it up
here.
too much. Okay, we can't hype it up too much because everyone. No, they do have better military installations. They do they have better like living conditions all the time, right?
Well, that's a relative statement, right? So I was going through training in the Air Force, and my mom was joking with me before I joined, and she's like, you're going to end up getting stationed somewhere where there's like no running water. Are you sure you want to do this? You could go overseas and be away from your family and friends. And I'm like, Mom, like, it's not going to happen. It's just, I'm going to get, the duty station of my choice. I'm going to get the job that I want. And I'm going to love it. And I did not get the job of my choice. And my first duty assignment out of training was Osan Air Base, South Korea.
You were in at least a good place in Korea.
It's true.
There's a lot worse places to be.
Right. But, compared to Air Force installations.
That's true.
Right.
Very true. So was that your first duty assignment?
Yes.
Your first choice?
Oh, no. My first choice was to get back to Georgia. Dad was stationed there, and I had finished, middle school and started my high school life there. So, I'm only a couple of years displaced from Georgia at this point in time. I have a lot of friends that still live in that area. Robbins Air Force Base is right there. I would have taken Moody Air Force Base, which I did end up at one point in time. But the intent for me was to get back to Georgia and around all the friends that I had there.
Didn't work out as usual.
South Korea. So the military was like, close, how far can we get you from where you actually want to go?
Well, let's go back to the first thing. So
okay,
you joined the Air Force.
Yep.
To get your first. Your mom was like, they're going to screw you. You're like, no, mom, it's gonna work out perfectly fine. You're 17, I get it. So what you enlisted as a civil engineering apprentice.
That's right.
So what was your first choice?
Well, let's back up just a little bit more than that, right? So, 17 years old, my parents have to approve this. They have to sign on the dotted line. So I remember a recruiter coming over to our house in Indiana at the time, and he's kind of talking to me. He's kind of talking to me about options, and the Air Force is in need of EOD specialist at this point in time. And I'm like, man, he's churching up this EOD job. He's like, this is the coolest job ever. And so I'm like, and we're giving you a big old bonus if you sign up for this. And so, my eyes are as big as they can be right now.
Like, we got one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Hook, line, and sinker. And I was like, dude, you could just go and then like blow a bunch of stuff up and work with explosives. I was like, that's cool. And my dad was on the other side of the table, and he was like, you're an EOD guy. You make sure stuff doesn't blow up. And I'm like, oh, that's lame. So, I mean, little did I know that that's not the most accurate description either way of what they do. But, so honestly, when I signed, I went in what's called open general. So in 99, when you joined the Air Force, it was very rare for you to actually have a guaranteed job when you entered in the Air Force, at least from my understanding.
That's what they told you. No,
yeah, right. Yeah, sucker.
Yeah.
But I joined Open General. You've taken your ASVAB and stuff and all this at this point in time. So you get to Lackland Air Force Base to Air Force Basic Training. And one of the days that you're in there, they basically pull us all into a room, and they've set these binders out, and you sit there, and there's a stack of jobs that you can pick based on your ASVAB scores. And so they're like, go through this book and pick a job. And so I'm kind of going through it, and I remember seeing like aviation related things, air traffic control. That was like, I think, my number one pick. And I can't remember, what number 2 and number 3 was, but I had selected these aviation related career fields in the Air Force, put it on the list, and then they call you back into like a counselor's office, and they are reviewing kind of like your high school transcripts or college transcripts, whatever you have. And they're looking at the job that the list that you've filled out. And then they're also looking over here, behind you where you can't see anything. And they're like, these are what the Air Force needs filled right now. And so typically a lot of the guys ended up going into like security forces, Air Force MPs. But the counselor looked at my high school transcripts, and they said, you took trigonometry in high school? And I was like, yeah, my parents wouldn't let me take a half day in my senior year. So I ended up taking like pre-cal, trig. And they said, great, that's a prerequisite for one of the jobs in the Air Force. You're going to go be an engineering apprentice. I'm like, well, I don't want to be an engineering apprentice.
You're like, no.
And they're like, well, we don't really give a crap what you want. That's the job that you're going to be. So go forth and do this. And the reason why is that, in this job, you do land surveying, and they teach you how to be a surveyor. And there's, basic trig associated with being a land surveyor.
But I mean, really, did you have to? I mean, I feel like they could have taught you that.
I think
they just,
but listen, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because everybody in the Air Force is just kind of smarter than everybody else. So they could have taught us.
Throw down some huge gauntlets here about. No, I mean, I love hearing those stories, because it is really, at the end of the day, a lot of it is what the government needs, and you. Yeah,
needs of the military.
Everyone's falling prey, but you really hear anybody. It's like, I got my first CD sign, I got everything. I mean, there are people out there, and all more power.
I was not that lucky, not even close.
So, I mean, where do you go to your training for that?
That's an
individual training.
Yeah, really good question. So, in the Air Force, it's called Tech School.
Okay.
And basic training's at Lackland Air Force Base.
Uh-huh.
I turned 18 when I was in basic training. And surprisingly enough, this career field in the Air Force, they have the same job in each of the branches. So in the Navy, it's, the CBs. In the Army, it's like the engineer guys. Okay. And they all train at Fort Leonard Wood. So I went from Air Force basic training, thinking I'm going to get the duty station of my choice and the job of my choice, going through basic training, and then here I am at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, for tech school. And as a very small Air Force detachment on this Army base now, our cadre believed that if the Army was doing this kind of training, well, so are we. They're not going to show us up. So honestly, the PT and the physical fitness aspect of tech school at the beginning was even a little bit more challenging than Air Force basic training, because it was what the Army was doing.
Right.
It's one of the Army's basic training locations as well. So the school's about 6 months long, maybe 5 months, something like that. And they teach you, it is a really good job. They teach you basic land surveying. They teach you manual drafting, like, floor plans and, things like that. And they teach you AutoCAD, which is the drafting program that a lot of, engineers use. So they teach you all of that information, which is, really good skill to have. It's a good job to have. It just, I didn't really have much passion for it. But I did well, did what I was supposed to do. Good little airman right there at the beginning, and, trying to keep my nose clean and work hard. So yeah, that was tech school.
So you were 18 when all this was going. You actually head over to Korea at 18 years old.
Yep, that's right.
That's young. I mean, in all seriousness, like, a lot of people don't realize we have people who, screwed around a couple years after, done some other things. So 18 years old, you're leaving. You're not even. You're leaving home. You're leaving the United States. You're going to Korea. And at the time, that isn't a time where, like it is now, where everybody had phones and internet. So what was that like as an 18-year-old heading out to Korea?
Well, I guess leading up to it, there wasn't really much fear there. You don't know what you don't know. So it's like, Air Force will take care of me. I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to, fly to another country. And you're not planning or, thinking about this. You're 18 years old and getting on a plane and going and doing this thing. So I land there, and it's just foreign. I landed in Seoul, and I'm walking off the plane, and thank God there was somebody, like, with a piece of paper there with my name on it, just collecting all of us up. And, I get put on a van or whatever. And, but here you are, 18 years old with, literally a duffel bag of everything that you own, showing up in a foreign country. And, I think when you land there, it starts to hit you, and you're like, oh man, like, here I am, in a completely foreign country. I've never really been away from my family at all. And I guess here we go. We're just gonna do it live and figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, and realistically, did you have a phone? Did you have a cell phone?
Oh yeah, no cell phones. Yeah. I think cell phones weren't popular back then, but I think I ended up getting one when I was in Korea, but it only worked, like, locally.
Right.
So you could pay for, I think, a landline or something like that in your dorm room or something, and you could call back. But really, it wasn't a whole lot of communication back and forth. You get your 1 month mid-tour leave, and they'll fly you home for a month, and then you get to come back or whatever. But yeah, I guess it wasn't too much difference, because when I left for basic, I didn't have a phone, and it was literally handwriting letters if you wanted to write somebody a letter. The same thing with tech school. Only when you got to a certain stage in school did you earn these privileges to call back home. So it was kind of just the norm for me at the time to just kind of go do my thing. I guess I kind of expected it always to be this way.
Right.
When I get a chance to get a hold of my family, I will, but otherwise, I'm doing my thing.
So did you travel all the way in Korea?
Not much. I mean, a little bit around the peninsula itself, but we got to go visit Seoul every once in a while, and head up to the DMZ and see that, and go stand on the border and walk across the line, and all that touristy stuff that all the service members do. I did get to go down south to Kunsan and see it down there, but honestly, a little bit of a regret of mine, but I didn't travel outside of the country when I was there.
Yeah. I was over there in 2000 with about the same time you were, maybe a little bit later. But up at Camp Casey, so it was a little bit different. But yeah, getting into Korea, like you did hit it. No one's talked about that before. When you show up to the airport in Seoul, and there's all the military people grabbing you off, and they're like, yeah, come with me, come with me. And I remember a bunch of they were getting all the Army guys, and they were talking about where people had orders to. You know, what I mean, this E7's like, who's got orders to Camp Casey, and people are like, I don't have Camp Casey. Like, get on this bus. You're going to this bus. There's a warrant officer. It's like, I'm not getting on that bus. I'm going to, I'm supposed to be going to wherever. And he's like, bullshit, sir. You're going to 2ID. Get on this bus. And then get the 2ID, and you're like, oh, welcome. All you people that thought you weren't going to 2ID, well, you're going to 2ID. But no, Korea. So Korea, you eat any of the local food?
Yeah.
What's your favorite Korean food then?
I mean, I'm a bulgogi guy through and through. I mean, so I'm going to jump forward a little bit, but the last few years in the regiment, the group of guys that I worked with, we would eat Wacky Food Wednesday every week. And there's this great little Korean joint in Clarksville, Tennessee, and every Wednesday we'd head over there and we'd get some yakimandu and eat some bulgogi and just beat up all the kimchi. I mean, that's just. I love all of it, Yeah,
Korean food is great. I mean, that's one thing I miss is they have such great food, and there's a couple great Korean restaurants here in town too. There's one.
We need to talk about that.
I think is one of I pronounce wrong, but they've got some really good stuff. The Korean food's great. The soups. I thought we talked about. When I came back, I admit to leave. I don't think I was eating any American food. It was always just at the cantina, go off post and eat Korean food. I miss it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it was great.
Cooking your own bulgogi.
Yeah. I loved all the little side dishes that you get. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it's called, but all the different little bean sprouts and radishes and kimchis and things like that. That was a lot of fun.
So did you drink any soju while you were
Oh, well, yeah, man. Everybody does. There's this event when you get there, our unit did a pretty cool thing. They did, a green bean and a brown bean. And, I'm like, okay, whatever. They're like, hey, new guy, we're going to take you out. We're going to show you downtown right outside the gate. And, they end up kind of playing a trick on you. Mind you, I'm 18 years old. I was a pretty good kid growing up. I didn't really get into, smoking or drinking or anything like that. So here I am in Korea where off base, there's still the military law out there and you're supposed to be a legal drinking age, but here I am, and they set down what's called an ammo bowl in front of us, and it's this big Tupperware looking size bowl, bunch of straws in it, and it's just mixed with like a whole bottle of soju and some sort of fruit juice or something like that, and everybody's supposed to grab a straw and just start drinking this thing, and sure enough, it's just me drinking this thing, and you can use your imagination of how well that night ended, but they take care of you, get you back to your house, put you to make sure you're taken care of, and but yeah, that was my first experience with soju, and really my first experience with alcohol. And I was like, man, I get it. I know why people drink this alcohol stuff, man. It's really good.
I don't really drink a whole ammo crate.
Well, yeah, it took a few days to recover from that one, but soju was good. It's what everybody drinks there.
It is a good. Very good. I did drink a lot of it in Korea. It is the drink of choice, for sure.
Yeah, in Korea, for sure. Yeah. It's either that or the only beer you can get, I think, was OB Lager. I don't know if they had that when you were there, but it's like a Canadian import.
Yeah. We were drinking a lot of Budweiser. Everything was cheap there. I would tell you, like beers were like $1.50 or something.
Yeah, 1,001.
Yeah, and you're like you go out and spend drink a lot and not spend a lot of money, but a lot of soju was getting consumed for sure. So you're over there for a year. You serve your time in Korea, first two assignment, and then you head to Moody.
Yep. So do 1 year, and then the way the Air Force kind of ran it, best of my knowledge, is that when you serve in a remote tour location, they try to get you your duty station of choice after that. So here was my opportunity to get back to Georgia, and so I did. I think I had put in. Robbins and Moody just to kind of make sure I got back to the state. And I did. So got assigned to a civil engineering unit there at Moody Air Force Base and was loving it. It's a little college town. Valdosta State University is right there. So it's a great little kind of gem in South Georgia, right on the Florida border.
So we're going to get to the next part where it's transition. So you're there 2-3 years.
Yeah, so finish out my career there. So, initial training takes 6 months, a year in Korea. So just under 3 years, do a couple of deployments. At this point in time, I had just gotten to Moody. September 11th happens. I was at work watched it happen. I think we all kind of had the same thought process that everybody else did. We don't need to really belabor that, but so deployed early in 2002 to Pakistan, and our job there, I mean, this is the civil engineer's job, is go to an airfield and build it up so U.S. forces can come in here and run air operations out of this base. I think they were running CSAR operations out of the location that we were. So all of the initial forces that went into Afghanistan and the missions that they were running in there, they needed to have some sort of close by CSAR element, and they were running that out of our base. And then I think they were running the AC-130s out of there as well.
So you 9/11 kicks off. You go there, actually deploying. You're doing your job. What was that like? You're 19 years old, 20 years old. You're doing what you're getting paid to do in the Air Force.
Yep.
Were you loving it? Because you said you were really passionate about your job. Did that help you a little bit more? Or did
that first rotation to Pakistan really opened my eyes to a new career field. They had the H-53s out there that were doing the CSAR operations for the Air Force, and I thought that was the coolest helicopter I'd ever seen. I mean, just this big monster helicopter, and I saw the aircrew guys and how they lived. They definitely had that demeanor of we're better than you and we know it. They kind of just all lived off on their own and kind of did their own thing and was separate from everybody else. And I was really intrigued by that. So I started talking to the leadership about potentially, cross training, and they normally let first term airmen cross train as part of a retention program that they have in the Air Force. But one of the rules is your career field can't be undermanned. And mine was, and it's got to be because that.
I can't believe that the civil engineering apprentice is.
Well, they had that stupid rule about having had some kind of trigonometry class. Which
like, don't take trigonometry.
Yeah,
don't tell them you took that.
Yeah, stay away from trig.
Yeah, anybody go in the Air Force, do not tell them you took trigonometry. You're not going to be a pilot
unless you want to do this job. Unless you want to go be a surveyor.
Unless you want to go be a surveyor. So fly or get an F in it, right?
Fail. Just fail it or something.
So any kid out there that's going to the Air Force, you're taking that class. Dan says fail it. He'll talk to your parents for you about it. It'll save you a lot of misery. Yeah, but you can understand too the time of what's going on in the world. Things are changing, So now you do one more deployment in Jordan.
Yeah,
right?
do the same thing when we're doing the initial invasion into Iraq. Early 03, do a deployment to Jordan, build up a base. The base is doing the exact same thing. They're running the AC-130s and the CSAR out of it. And I'm starting to realize at this point in time that they're really not going to let me cross train. So, I go, I've got leverage here because I'll get out of the Air Force. They don't want me to leave. Well, let me just go ahead and put everybody's mind to rest. If you think that that's good leverage for the military, that give me what I want, otherwise I'm gonna leave. The Air Force will definitely say, see you later.
Yeah, they're like,
it wasn't going to happen. They weren't going to let me cross train. So I finished my contract in June of 03 and left the Air Force.
So you start your first tour as a civilian, right?
Start my first tour as a civilian.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're a military brat.
Yep.
All up to 2003.
Yep.
You get out, you head back to Ohio, right?
So at this point in time, my family is now in Ohio.
Okay.
They ended up moving from Indiana while I was in the Air Force to Columbus, Ohio. They had they haven't even sold the house in Indiana yet. My dad was here, and my mom was back in Indiana, getting the house sold. And Dad was here, started his new job here, and I left the Air Force and was staying here with my dad as I kicked off my first tour as a civilian.
So what was that like? You left the military, kind of not on your own terms, but not completely satisfied, right?
Right.
What do you start doing in the meantime? You go to school?
Yeah, I did a little bit of school, trying to do the responsible thing, but nothing productive. It was just.
Did you have fun though?
As a civilian?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I think we're going to talk a little bit about this later, but I had just left something that was, although it wasn't the most satisfying job that I ever wanted, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. I was kind of unsatisfied. This wasn't the goal that I had. When I joined, I was like, man, I'm going to be a lifer. My dad, I love the benefits that retirees get. So, that's what I'm going to do. And, I'm going to pursue this thing. And then it just kind of fizzled out in my first contract. And I was like, man, this sucks, and so I'm kind of bitter about leaving, and I just don't have the right mindset or the right attitude as a civilian, and the civilian world would just chew you up and spit you right back out, man. There's no sympathy. There's nobody there looking out for you. You don't have your brothers, like you had in the military, pick you up and kind of help you out when you need it. So 4 years as a civilian, did a little bit of school, worked for, just did enough work to survive, but I wasn't doing anything productive with my life. And so
with that going on, you're beating yourself up internally. What were your parents? Were they supportive or kind of
yeah, for sure,
kicking in the butt a little bit?
No,
or like,
no. They're my parents are being as loving as they can, right? But you can't tell me what to do at this point in time. I'm
a man.
I'm a grown man, and I've done 4 whole years in the military, and I know I can take the world on single handedly, and nobody can tell me what to do. And I've been
trigonometry, damn it.
Yeah, there you go. I've deployed. I've been to war.
Wow.
And so it was. I was bullheaded and stubborn, and my parents were always trying to, I think, do the right thing, and make sure I didn't do something, so terribly bad that it would have like screwed the rest of my life up. But it wasn't anything good, man. It was just my life wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't excelling at anything. There was no purpose there. And so, a few years later, this is 4 years out of the Air Force. I'm like, I've had enough of this. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to finish my military career, and I'm going to set out. I'm going to do what I set out to do at the beginning. And so naturally, I went to the Air Force recruiters, and I was like, surely
they're going to take my ass back.
They're going to take me back, and they're going to give me the job that I want,
and the duty assignment I want.
Yeah, and the duty assignment I want. Yeah, fool me once, right? Well, go back to the Air Force recruiter and, give them my DD-214, and they look it up and they say, okay, yeah, well, the career field that we already paid to train you for and put you in is surprisingly enough still
they're looking at the book. They're like, oh, yeah, you still took trigonometry.
Yeah.
You went to tech school. Oh, you did it for 4 years?
Look at this. If you want to come back in the Air Force, you're going to do the exact same thing.
Did they offer you a bonus at least?
No bonus.
Oh.
No bonus. Well, to be honest with you, I don't know that I even gave them the chance to have the real conversation. They did offer me 2 other jobs. So full disclosure, I could have gone right back into what I did. I could have joined the band, the Air Force band.
Did you play an instrument?
I was a horn player growing up in high school and stuff. So there was some qualification there, but it'd been years. So, and I'm not doing this, right? I don't want to play in the band. Or they offered me the opportunity to go try to become a PJ, a pararescueman. And as cool as that sounds, for the last 4 years, I have been doing absolutely nothing with my life. And
you haven't ran.
Not in great shape, right? So, and I knew what the PJs were all about. And I'm like, there's no way I could do that right now. So, all right. I don't really like these options. I still want to fly on helicopters. Like I've never let go of like seeing those aircrew guys in Pakistan and like how they lived their life and the tight knit group of people that they had. I still had a desire for that.
I mean, that's kind of funny though when you think about it. Like the spectrum of jobs they offered you. I mean, like the PJ one, band, and then civil engineering apprentice. I mean, I can't think of it. I mean, there's nothing that even like connects them in any way.
Other than the fact that the Air Force needs those 3 things, right? I mean, needs of the military. For anybody who's thinking about joining and going in, I promise you that the military's needs play a factor in what you get to do in the military.
But I mean, but now it's better though, because now numbers are low. I mean, maybe you have a little bit more bargaining. Probably not though.
You think, right? I thought I did at one point in time, and I found out real quickly.
Roll the dice and find out.
Yeah.
So this is the good part where I get to make fun of the Air Force again.
Let's do
it. You decide not to continue your outstanding career as a civil engineering apprentice.
Right.
You head over to the Army.
I
Talk to
do.
the Army?
Yeah. Well, I'm like, well, there's 3 other branches. I'm never going to go talk to the Marines, right? I'm just not going to do that. I was an Air Force guy, so too smart to be a Marine. No offense to any of the Marines out there.
No, it's okay.
It's a joke. Don't
No,
like hunt me down, okay?
it's true.
And really had zero desire to ever be in the Navy. That just wasn't a thing, that I was even considering or contemplating. But I honestly did, I remember kind of like shaking my head and just like really having to swallow my pride and say, well, let me go see what the Army guys have to say. So I walked into the Army recruiter's office after the Air Forces offered me a band job. And I say, listen, I don't know anything about the Army. I don't know what you guys call these jobs or what the job title is called, but I want to fly on Black Hawk helicopters because I knew the Army didn't have the H-53s. And I didn't want to be a Chinook guy. So Black Hawks, right? That's what I want to do. And so the recruiter looks at me and he goes, we don't have that job. And I said, well, okay. So I left the Army recruiter's office and I went and I looked up a picture of an Army Black Hawk. And it's got this crew chief standing out the window on a 240, says U.S. Army right on the side of the helicopter. And I take it back to the recruiter's office a few days later and I point to the guy and I'm like, I don't know what you guys call this job. I might have said it wrong. I don't know. But whatever this guy does, that's what I want to do. So I will give it to the Army recruiter, right? The guy had no clue that like this job really even existed. He called down to Fort Rucker, Alabama, which is where the Army's flight school is. And he talked to a bunch of guys there and he got some information and he came back and he said, okay, listen, it's called a 15 Tango and it's a UH-60 helicopter repairer, a maintenance guy. I was like, no. I don't want to be a mechanic. I want to fly on the helicopters. And he was like, yeah, man, well, and here comes the recruiter spiel. And I'm like, oh no, like I can smell this a mile away. You got to go in as a mechanic first, and then you can be the crew chief. And I'm like, no way, like this. I don't know if I want to do this. I've heard horror stories about people, wanting to do a certain job and didn't get it. So did a little bit more research and found out that, yeah, that is the case. It's not a guarantee. But if you do well and you perform well as a maintainer, you can kind of get recruited by a flight company and you can go on to be a crew chief. So I go back to MEPS for the second time now, and they come to me and they're like, sorry, we're actually full up on this career field. We can't offer it to you right now. So how about this other job? I said, nope. I kind of just knew better at this time. This is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do something separate than that. So I said, don't just call me when you have a job opening. And, sure enough, before I could walk out of the MEPS building, somebody came and got me and said, oh yeah, well, hold on. We can, I think we can get you in there.
They would look at this record like they already got the Air Force got him on this civil engineering thing.
Yeah.
If we wait this guy out, he'll take something else that he doesn't want.
Yeah. No. Yeah. They tried, but, no, I was pretty dead set on wanting to do that job. So, so ended up doing that. Didn't have to go through basic training again, already done. So I went through something called the Warrior Transition Unit or something. Real low drama kind of thing. Refresher on drill and ceremony and customs and courtesies and Army physical fitness and stuff like that. And so it's low drama. But the AIT for the Army for this job is up in Fort Eustis, Virginia. So I go from the Warrior Transition Unit to Virginia. I train there for a couple of months to become the Black Hawk repairer. And then I get assigned to the 1st Air Cavalry Division at Fort Hood, Texas.
Beautiful Fort Hood, Texas. Yeah, my dad all excited. He's a 1st Cav guy.
Well, okay. I'll be nice. I respect you, sir.
Did you see him wake up? He's like, oh. The biggest patch in the Army?
The biggest patch in the Army, and they're proud of it.
Yeah.
They are absolutely proud of that patch.
Yeah, I got a good joke about the patch, but I won't.
Go ahead.
You're not going to offend me. The horse that was never rode, the line that was never crossed, and the color is the reason why.
Yeah.
That's a good joke, too. My dad always look at me, he's like, fucking Shay. Saying that joke for 20 No, but spent time Fort Hood. I've been there. Beautiful Fort Hood. Great post.
I thought that we were supposed to be like telling the truth in these kind of podcasts here.
It is an interesting place. But I mean, you end up going to the cabin. I mean, those are 2 units at the time. We're doing a lot of shit,
Yeah.
a lot of deployment. So
Yeah. So
when you went back in, what rank did they let you come back in the Army as?
Surprisingly enough, E4 when I left the Air Force, out for like 4 years and like a month. And so after 4 years, I come back in the Army as an E3. So come back in the Army as an E3, and 6 months later, I've got E4 back and
Just
whatever.
They're like, gotta harass that Air Force guy.
Yeah. Can't let you just have it too easy. So showed up to Hood. I was actually on Rear D. The unit was deployed at the time when I got there. I got there in January of 08. January of 08 to Hood. And they were at the very end of their rotation. They got back in like February or March or something of 08. So I sat on the rear detachment for a little while, and watched all these guys redeploy home. And I don't know how much you know about rear detachment, but there's literally nothing to do.
I know this much. You never want to be on rear.
You never want to be on rear detachment. There's no helicopters there. The whole unit's deployed.
Yeah.
You get tasked out to do these details, and it's just kind of sucks. But the guys are coming home, and you're wanting to make a good impression because remembering what I've researched and studied, show up, keep your nose clean, work hard, get selected to go to a flight company. So that's the goal. So they come back. Little do I know, it takes another month for all the helicopters to get back. So you're trying to like meet these guys and get in and fit in with them and stuff like that. And they're like, shut up, nerd, Rear D, new guy. Like, we just came back from 13, 14 months overseas.
We don't even want to see a Black Hawk.
Yeah. They're like, I'm like, let's get after it. And they're like, shut up. Okay. So they're all taking their block leave and doing their thing, but life normalizes, the birds come home, and I'm assigned to the maintenance company and doing my thing with the maintenance company. And I get noticed by one of the flight companies, and they pick me up to start crewing.
Yeah. So just for people, Jason was I think guest 2 or 3. He's on our board. He's also at 15 Tango.
Okay.
So we learned, like you do, like Dan says, you got to spend some time fixing them, and then you can't get into the flight companies if you're good enough, right? If you meet the criteria, or
again,
they like you,
there's
like
there's like the needs of the company,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So the needs of the Army, needs of the brigade, and battalion, and company.
But also, not everybody wants to do that either. There's some
That's
people.
true.
That's one of the things that people don't realize is there are a lot of people that go in there to maintain them. They have no desire to fly.
Yeah, some people are just completely. You can do a career track as a 15 Tango and never crew. There's production control. There's quality assurance. There's maintenance team leads and all kinds of stuff that you can do in your Army careers at 15 Tango outside of flying.
So how long did it take you to get to the flight company?
Maybe 6 months. So from time of January of getting there, birds came home. A couple guys PCS'd out of the flight companies or got out of the Army or whatever, and they have a need. So then they kind of come down to the maintenance company, and they're like, hey, who wants to fly? And talk to the section leaders and squad leaders and stuff. And hey, this guy says he wants to fly. Is he squared away? Is he worth bringing over? Is he kind of a mature guy or whatever? So, whatever reason, whatever they liked, they saw in me, and they brought me over to Alpha Company.
So I think before we start talking about, you have a couple deployments with First Cav. So before we do that, let's get into the first featured whiskey.
Okay.
You brought a really cool one. This is really me regretting that I'm still on dry January, as Dan said. It's stupid.
Lame.
It's
that's
stupid.
That's dumb.
Stupid. I think dumb.
That's
I think you said that's dumb. Yeah, it's dumb. It's stupid. Whatever I did, but I'm chugging along.
What's the reasoning behind it?
I don't really know. I mean, it's just more of like saying. I mean,
well, that makes it even more dumb.
Everybody can take a chance of not. I mean, drinking isn't. You're talking about your mantra, like you only drink bourbon when you're around other people. That's not how I drink bourbon. I drink bourbon pretty much.
I'd like to correct that just a bit. I only drink bourbon when I'm around good friends. Right. That's kind of my rule when I break into the bourbon. Not to say I won't have a drink, other times or whatever, but I try to reserve the bourbon for good friends and good stories.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. It's the perfect time for it. But also down in your basement when you're by yourself. No, but you asked why I did it. I feel like towards the end of the year you have all the holidays, like you're drinking, you have like vacation days. So like sometimes you just feel like you overindulge and kind of a little bit of a break to do that, and then like just pick something to do every once in a while to make yourself miserable.
Well, I'll stop
It's always
harassing you
good.
about it.
No, I mean it's. I'm actually thinking about going 90 days with some like stipulations.
All right. Well, it's time to go.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know
yeah,
about this. Last year I did 58. It was a horrible idea. I don't recommend it, but 90 would be different. But I'm kind of the only reason I'm regretting this is a bottle I've never had, and hopefully you'll be able to leave a sample with me when you leave. But this is a pretty unique bottle. As you can see here, it's pretty cool looking. It's from a distillery we've never talked about before, and not a lot of people. I didn't know about it. I'd seen the picture before. I never really researched about it. But the distillery is called Heritage Distilling Company. Which was actually founded in 2011 by Justin and Jennifer Stifel, and then two U.S. Army veterans, two U.S. Army veteran family, Drew and Sarah Kellerman. HDC is what they go by as among the top premier craft distilleries in the United States. They make a variety of different whiskeys, vodkas, gins, and rums, and use as many local ingredients as they can. And I think it's in Washington and Oregon. It is one of the largest craft distilleries on the West Coast and is the largest independently owned distillery in Washington State. They have a bunch of different lines, but this is what they call their Special Operations Salute. They released this product line last year, and the idea behind it is to honor and celebrate and raise funds for organizations that support the U.S. Special Forces, SOF units. The project is to increase and broaden awareness of the extraordinary sacrifices made by the heroes and families of the United States Special Operations Forces. HCC's goal is to raise funds for select nonprofit organizations that support SOF warriors, veterans, and their families, and they're targeting for at least $1 million for qualified charities for each of their military editions. So this is the first one. I think there's like, I looked at the website, there's like 6 or something.
Well, I think the idea was they're going to definitely come out one with like every branch. Yeah. And this is just the soft.
I didn't look at it. I should have did, but on the website they show the next one. This is the first one. So this is kind of cool. Dan and I were talking about it before. As a craft distillery, a lot of the times they're sourcing whiskey. They everything I read about, they say it is not sourced. It's their own distillate that was distilled in Washington, which is pretty interesting. This is actually a blend of 2 6-year-old bourbons and 1 7-year-old rye. It's age stated 6 years and it's 105 proof. And the mash bill is undisclosed. There's nothing that says what it is. So I'll open it for you.
All right.
And it's got a cool bottle. Got a cool little. And they're available. Dan was saying they had 2 releases. The original release, this is from that. So
yeah, this is the original release. It sold out pretty quickly. And then they're last I checked, it's available again now. So
let's not mess that up. Ooh, I just bend it.
Yeah, just throw it in the trash back there.
Yeah, there we go. It's a cool bottle. That might be here somewhere. You never know when you're in Indian knife, right?
There you go.
I feel like everybody's watching it, whether on the camera and down here.
Who else am I pouring a glass for?
All those ones.
There we go. That's right.
Sure.
My man.
Oh, wow. I'll pour you there. Grab a glass. Smells very nice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll have you hand that to those guys.
Yeah.
Nose it there real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wow. Smells really nice. Just wait a minute. Just watching everything. So what'd you think?
Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I didn't necessarily have like a lot of high hopes for it. I bought it because of what they do and who they support. And I think that's really important. So I didn't really care if it tasted good or not, but surprisingly, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it smells. It's got like it has a great nose. I mean, honestly, it's got a lot of richness. It doesn't taste young.
Yeah.
So, and I was worried too when I was reading that it was their own distillation. So
right.
It smells good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I'm a little jealous now. Look, man, like I want to pout for like 10 seconds. No. We'll move on. So we'll move on to your story. You're at Fort Hood. You finally got your dream job. You're in the flight company.
That's right.
What was your first deployment to Iraq or Afghanistan?
Iraq. Yeah. So Iraq in 2009, 2010. And all I heard for that entire year from everybody else who was there, the prior deployment was how crappy this deployment was. Because back in 07, 08, that was the wild days of central Iraq and Baghdad, which is where we were stationed out of Taji. Um, and it was wild and it was awesome and it was a great deployment and everybody was getting after it. And all I did for an entire year was pretty much ring routes from one fob to another, just picking people up and moving, doing PAX movements for an entire year. I would fly, like 5 or 6 days a week, 8 hours a day, 100-degree weather, didn't matter, just ring routes. No direct missions, nothing special really going on there. Um, just nothing but PAX movement ring routes. And I'm like, surely this job is better than that, right? I have seen cool movies about what Black Hawk helicopters do in the Army, and I never saw them just doing nothing but PAX movements around the theater. So it was still new, so it was fun and it was interesting, and everybody was looking at us like we were the air crew guys wearing the different uniforms, and to be a little bit different is kind of intriguing. Um, and so I loved it. And don't get me wrong, I love flying. The moment that aircraft leaves the ground and we start flying, uh, it's a different experience, and it's one that I have desired my entire life. I watched my dad as a pilot for growing up and being around the Air Force planes and air shows and pilots and air crews, and I wanted that so badly for my time in the Air Force, and it didn't come. And now here I am. I'm actually getting to fly on helicopters, and it at the time was very rewarding. Looking back on it, I'm like, man, that rotation really sucked. But at the time, it was very fun for me because I'm doing this thing that I wanted to do. So maybe I was lying to myself about what the mission set was going to be, or what kind of expectations I had for it. But we're flying and we're accumulating flight hours and flying with NVGs at night, and doing all that fun stuff at the time, and kind of honing my craft.
But still want more, though, you'd say, right?
I didn't know what else was out there at the time. We were an air assault. We were an assault battalion. So our job was the air assault mission, and the lineage of the air cav through Vietnam, and the legacy that this unit has created throughout history. Man, I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to be an air cav guy wearing a Stetson, like bucking all the rules and just going out there and being a cowboy and having fun with it.
You're gonna make my dad cry over there. He's like,
well, that was
remember those days.
That was their lineage, LZ X-ray and everything that they did in Vietnam.
100%. Yeah.
We got a lot of aviators who are, a lot. There are a number of aviators who are Medal of Honor recipients for how they supported the ground force in Vietnam. And I have an uncle who served in Vietnam and was very emotional and very clear about how many times the Hueys would come in and pull him out of a bad situation. And so that's kind of what I expected and wanted. It was like, let's get in here and like do something like neat. Let's help somebody. Let's do some good for this unit. And it just kind of fell flat to me. And granted, people's proximity to the battle, to the fight itself, is not relevant to the importance of their service, right? People who serve are people who serve. So, although we weren't running direct action missions or air assaults or anything like that, still proud that deployed, did the year there, got married during this time frame in my life to my wonderful wife who's from Reynoldsburg up here. That's a whole nother story. We'll have to come back on and have just a podcast on that story. But ended up getting married and doing this year-long deployment, and my wife is super supportive and she's not giving me a hard time about it, but maybe there's something more out there. So we finish that rotation and we come home and we're off for we're already on the patch chart to go again. year on, year off rotations. I think the Cav did that for almost 10 years, where they were deployed for a year, they were home for a year. So like 5 rotations over a 10-year period, which, and a lot of the guys there had, already 2 deployments. This was their 3rd deployment under their belt. I mean, just rowing the boat. I mean, it's challenging for their families. It's hard for them to be gone for an entire year at a time. So we're home for 12 months, and this is why it's so difficult. You're home for 12 months, but during that 12 months that you're home, you have at least one CTC rotation where you're going to JRTC or NTC. And because we were scheduled to go to Afghanistan with the mountains there, we needed to go through our high altitude training. So there was another CTC, 3-week, 4-week rotation in Colorado, flying in the mountains up there. So there's 2 months gone. And then you've got, inevitably you have an NCOES school or some sort of professional development, or, ferrying your birds to and from reset locations and doing maintenance on them. So your 12 months home really whittles down to about like 8 or 9 months. And you're right back out the door again for a whole nother year. So on that next rotation, we go to Afghanistan, and we're in RC West out at Fob Shindan, little airfield out there that we're working out on. But we're starting to do this like task force breakdown of units. So like our brigade, our combat aviation brigade, had a portion of the Blackhawks and a portion of the Chinooks and a portion of the Apaches in multiple locations around Afghanistan. So this is kind of I don't know that it's like a new concept as far as how the military has been operating, but to me this was new. So in Iraq, it was the whole battalion was right there at the flagpole. All of our helicopters were right there. And then in Afghanistan, we now have split up a little bit, and we're doing more of an assault style mission set. We're also doing some med chase, medevac support. So, medevac birds that have the Red Cross on them, they don't have any real weapon systems on them. So what that med chase responsibility is we fly behind the medevac bird, and, if need be, provide, some sort of like weapon system at the point of injury when the medevac guys go in. So getting to experience some medevac stuff was really eye-opening. It was a really, a very, very fulfilling mission. Knowing that these guys are going out there and putting their neck on the line to go get somebody who's hurt and treat them and get them to safety and get them to treatment. That golden hour is something that the military lives by so much right now. And the fact that we have the capability of doing that, the mindset the medevac guys had, and these were, the medevac guys that we supported were, a guard unit out of like Rhode Island or something like that. And man, these guys didn't care about any of the rules. I mean, to the point where you're not going to tell us we can't go do this. Give us the point of injury. We're out the door. We're leaving. We don't care what you say. And I was like, man, these guys really, their attitude, their mindset is a little bit different. We've been so ingrained in like, this is exactly what we'll do. We will mitigate the risk. We will brief this. We will brief it multiple times, and very deliberate in the planning of our operations and execution of our operations. And these medevac guys are literally just running out the door and not using a checklist to start the helicopter, and pulling pitch, and they're nosing it over and getting to the fight, right? Man, that's awesome. That's really cool. And here we are trying to keep up behind them, and none of our aviators and crews are like prepared for that really, and so they're leaving us in the dust, and we'll get there when we get there. And so
see when we see you.
Yeah. It was really neat. It was really neat to see that, and to be able to, when you think medevac, maybe I thought initially it was like, we're only going to go get U.S. forces, but turned out that a lot of the missions that we ran for the medevac support were coalition forces, and even locals, local farmers, local kids, that got hurt doing something, and
Right.
they reported it up to the Americans, and we would go get them and get them to treatment and try to take care of them. So that was really eye opening. Um, and then so we would do like couple week rotations with these medevac guys, but then we would go back to the flagpole and we would do our normal operations there. Well, one night there was was out working the night shift, the air assault, the overnight schedule, and uh, I saw like 4 or 5 47s come in, but they had these big giant probes on them, and they landed completely blacked out, not talking to anybody. Rolled into this parking spot on the apron that was like far away from us. These guys get out and they're at the fob that we are for about I don't know 2 or 3 weeks, and at this point in time, I'd heard about the 160th. I knew that they existed, but it's a lot of rumors, about what they do and who they are and what it's like being there. And I saw these guys running around with their, different uniforms and, growing mustaches and hair that's out of rag. And, man, that's cool, right? You see these guys and they're just walking around with that chip on their shoulder. They just knew that they were the best, and you could see it on them. And I had a first sergeant at the time who was a prior Night Stalker, and he and I we bunked right next to each other in the tents that we were living in, and he and I talked a lot about the regiment, and he started saying that he thought that I would be a good fit there, and that I should maybe consider, putting in an application for, get picked up to go try and assess. So, I've talked to my wife about it, and I said, she's again super supportive. My daughter was born when I was on mid tour, and it's you miss 6 months of their life right off the bat. If you're lucky, and depending on the timing of when they're born, but. I talked to my wife about it, and I said, hey, listen, you and I both agree that this year on, year off rotation schedule is just not working for the family. Um, we're going to make sure we take care of each other. We're each other's priority, but there's something else that's out there that I can go do. But I don't want to do it if you're not going to be, supportive of it. So I kind of explained to her what little I knew of the 160th, and I said, "There's no more year-long deployments." And she goes, "I don't care, go do it." There's no more year-long deployments. I'm okay with that.
You didn't even get to the part like I can grow a mustache.
No, she didn't care about that stuff, man. Matter of fact, that probably would have dissuaded her from letting me do it. So, the big seller to her was not being separated and gone from the family for an entire year at a time. So I applied, got an assessment date, finished out that rotation, and did some, couple months stabilization back at Fort Hood, and then reported to the regiment at the end of 2012.
So assessment, you guys call it green platoon, right? For assessment selection? Is
the official name for it is enlisted. There's two. There's OGP, Officers Green Platoon,
okay,
and EGP, Enlisted Green Platoon, but its real name is Enlisted Combat Skills. And there is a wild difference between the two, the Officer Green Platoon and then the Enlisted Combat Skills. So for the initial 5-week assessment into it, for the enlisted side, you're focused on, obviously you go through all of the admin stuff leading up to this, and you're doing your psych eval, your clearance application, all of that kind of jazz, and then day one hits, and their whole mindset is twofold in training. Can we get you to quit? And we need to make sure you have this base knowledge of training, because we are about to put you in proximity to some pretty serious warfighters. And you can never be a liability when working around our customers. So that's the object of combat skills. Is it's a 5-week assessment. You go through a weapons training and eval. Everything you do, you get a train up, and then you get an eval on it. So it's you do a weapons week, you do a land nav week, you do a medical week, you do a combatives week, and then you do like a culminating event for your final week. And then somewhere in there you do what's called Black Day, where it is just the instructors having as much fun with you as they want to, and the entire purpose is to build team cohesion and to weed out people who really don't want to be there. I would say that the assessment is physically challenging, but it's not unachievable. I think if you really want to be a part of this organization, you can go through enlisted combat skills. You can go through Green Platoon. It's not buds. It's not the long walk. It's not like some of the other assessments that are out there. It's it's the Army standard, but it is the most standard that you can get. I mean, it is precise, and if you falter in this at all, there's no room for error there. So it is going to be physically challenging. It will be mentally challenging, but it is achievable if your heart's really in it.
So many people started with you in your platoon? How many finished roughly?
Well, what gets a lot of people is like the background check and the psych evals. I think we started with like, well over 100 people, and I think we graduated, 80 something. So between like, psych eval and security clearance issues, and that took the majority of them out. But we did have a handful of guys not make it through Black Day, and a couple of guys, if you fail an event, timed event, you're going to go out here. Here's your packing list for your rucksack. We're not going to hold your hand and baby you. Here's the list. Have the items, pack it to standard, execute 12-mile ruck march. Go do your thing. Timed ruck march. Come back, lay out your pack. The battery in your flashlight doesn't work. Well, you just failed. So, you're gonna repack this thing. You're gonna come back. You're gonna do it again, and then we'll give you one more chance at it. And a lot of guys, whatever the event may be, whether it was your land navigation event, whether it was the medical training that you got, that experience of failure that they received was enough to basically break them and say, what, this just isn't worth it for me. Doing this ruck march and turning around the next morning and having to do it again. And, in the backwoods of Kentucky where it's, got some terrain behind it, and, they're kind of fun with the route that they pick. And, some people they weren't willing to do it, and it cost them. But I will say it doesn't matter what your job is in the 160th. It's not like only line guys go through this assessment. Every enlisted service member, every officer that goes through, they go through a Green Platoon. They go through this initial assessment for the unit. And so when you show up on the compound, that everybody has gone through that training that you've gone through. You don't look at the intelligence guy or the supply guy or the motor pool guy going, you didn't have to do the assessment we did. We all did the exact same assessment.
That's a good esprit de corps. You kind of feel like you can trust everybody when that happens. Everybody's has a common, common training, a level of training that you can look back and trust another person. I think that's huge. It's one of the few. That's one of the few units that are like that. If you think about it,
right?
I mean, that's what makes it a special operations unit, where everybody has that common thing. Is everybody airborne qualified though?
It's an airborne unit, and guys, most guys are airborne qualified there. I am a dirty, filthy leg. I looked at this and I said, I'm going to fly in helicopters. Why in the world would I go jump out of the helicopters? Honestly, it's a timeline thing.
Yeah.
You are not, it's highly encouraged. And most guys, some guys do have to be airborne qualified based on, if you're a fuels guy, if you're an ammo guy, you're an armament guy, if you're a medic, you're required to be jump qualified because we can jump a FARP still. Yeah. Which is a forward arming and refueling point. So these guys can jump fuel and ammo out of the back of an airplane, land in a location, and we can come fly in the middle of nowhere and refuel and rearm if we need to.
Yeah.
So there are some jobs that are required to be. Other jobs, it's an opportunity for you to go do it if you want to. So my path was personnel recovery and survivability. So SEER schools. All aircrew guys are required to go through SEER-C before they can deploy. In fact, everybody is supposed to go through SEER-C before they can deploy in the unit. They're pretty strict about that. And the reasoning is higher chance of potential isolated personnel situations. So we want to make sure that every member in the regiment's SEER qualified. Great school. I don't care what people hear about it, what scary things they hear about that school. It's the best, worst school you can go to, but you will find out more about yourself in that Army school than in any other Army school. So highly recommend it. If you're in and you're thinking about it, don't let that be a detractor from you. Go do that. It's a great school.
So what are the differences? You have the SEER high risk, you have the SEER 400, and then regular SEER. What are the difference in those three?
Yeah. So SEER-C, that's the high risk, is what the baseline SEER school. Every pilot in the Army has it. Every Special Forces, Special Operations guy has it. The whole concept behind the program is being able to survive on your own, being able to communicate and navigate in an isolated situation, and to be able to resist interrogation and resist propaganda being made from you. So you do go through a couple of different scenarios while you're there, where they add some stress to your life, and physical and mental. But the idea is to make sure that the ultimate goal is that you are returning home with honor. We want to make sure that all of our service members, if they are ever isolated, that they can act and hold themselves in the standard that we still require them to as American service members, and that they come home. Very important that we come home, and that we can come home with honor.
Yeah.
The difference in the schools are basically different levels of training. SEER 400 is a really unique one. There's a whole bunch of SEER schools out there, and they train you different. They focus on different survivability tactics. 400 is it's a culmination of different SEER schools that JSOC created. So they're the people who are members of JSOC can go to one school but get the benefit of different SEER schools without having to go to 4 or 5 different schools. Okay. So yeah, level of training and what you're learning.
So you're finally at the 160th. You kind of start over though in the fact that you're not back on the aircraft. You're maintaining again, right?
Yep. So you go back. Same deal. Even more stringent this time though. Making your way into a flight company in the regiment is a pretty big deal. You go through another separate assessment and interview process for getting to a flight company while you're there. And so you show up to the maintenance company and they say, go to work. And it's a little difficult because I actually haven't done a whole lot of major maintenance. I've been flying for the last few years.
And it's different aircraft, right? There's a lot of different bells and whistles on the 160th stuff that you probably.
Yeah, that's right. So instead of the UH-60 variant that the regular Army flies, we're flying the MH-60 variant. So bottom line is we get a Sikorsky UH-60 and we send it over to a mod team, and they do a couple hundred different mods on it, and put the refueling probe on it, put a couple of different sensors on it, and wire it up for what we need to, and then they give it back to us as an MH-60. So it's show up, work, do a good job again, and let people know that this is what you're interested in doing. You want to go fly. There are 2 different types of Blackhawks in the 160th. There's the assault variant, which is very similar to what you would see in the regular Army, just black probe and different things, and their mission is kind of the same thing. It's delivering ground force to the target area. And then the other variant of Black Hawk is the direct action penetrator, which is
That's a cool sound.
this is the coolest named helicopter ever, right? It's a DAP helicopter. And I mean, we had this is one of the neat things about the special operations community is that when we determine that there's a need for something, the unit problem solves and develops it. And so when you're when we say that the special operations units are at the tip of the spear, it's not just operational tip of the spear, it's development tip of the spear as well. What is going to be most effective for what we need to fight the enemy? And we were given the freedom to manipulate the aircraft and go figure this thing out. So in the 90s, the ground force and the 160th determined that there was a need for close air support, RCAS, right, rotary wing air close air support, and so they literally Frankenstein like this machine together. And we had the airframe guys to help us out, and we had the armament guys and the electricians and all the test pilots who were nerding out over the suitability of can this thing fly, and they put this machine together that had these little stubby wings on it with fixed forward miniguns and a rocket pod and a 30 millimeter cannon. And that was the creation of...
Did you post one of those videos about the DAP?
Yes, I did.
I thought you did.
Yeah.
So if you didn't watch that, you definitely have to watch that. That's a cool... That's where it's at. That's pretty cool. I mean, you could just use an Apache, but they said, no, we don't need to do that. No, it is great to see. What I thought about the video, the one you sent me, or the one I was watching, what the crew had to do and all that, not only the flight operations, but making sure all that stuff was working correctly. And
that's right.
There's a lot of shit going on for
a
couple of years back. So the crew, is it still 2 in a DAP? Is it still 2?
2 pilots, 2 crew chiefs.
So 2 in the back. So
crew of 4, yeah, total crew of 4. And there's so I kept my nose clean, worked hard, and got asked by Charlie Company, which is the DAP company. And to be completely honest with you, at the beginning, I didn't want to be a DAP guy. I saw the difference in the 2 companies when I was a maintenance guy, and the DAP guys were just kind of different. They were just always alone by themselves, and they weren't hanging out with anybody, and they were always kind of dirty, and their uniforms had cordite all over it. And I mean, they were like these
that's because they were fucking shit up with that stuff.
They're a different breed of human being, for sure. Do I have all this on? You have to just no. To be a successful DAP guy, you have to have some screws loose, just a few screws loose.
Well, before we start talking about the time, so you finally get to go fly. Is it like the conventional forces where some people don't want to fly? So you still have the people who just want to maintain the aircraft.
That's
right.
That's a true statement.
Okay.
It just is. It's more competitive at this point in time.
That's what I figured. So what is your having up to this point, you've been in a few years. You've been a conventional guy, flight guy.
Yep.
You worked your way to the flight company. What do you think they were looking for in the flight guys in the 160th? What was different?
Yeah, they're looking.
What were they looking for?
They're looking for a couple of things. They're looking for trainability. They're looking for a mature person, and they're looking for longevity. And the reason why they're looking for longevity is because to become the timeline to start your training is, we don't care how much training you've had prior to being in the regiment. I had probably close to 1,000 flight hours when I got to the 160th, and none of that mattered to them. You were going to get trained their way, on their mission set, and you're going to do it this way, or you're not going to do it here. And so it takes about 18 months, maybe 8 to 24 months, depending, to go from not being a crew member in the regiment to being a fully mission qualified crew chief. So because it takes that long to actually train you to get to this point, they want to be able to get you there and then actually utilize you in combat. Now, they can utilize BMQs in combat as well, basic mission qualified crew chiefs, but you always have to have that correct crew mix, right? You've got an FMQ and a BMQ flying together in combat. You would never have two basic mission qualified guys in combat together. You have to have the FMQ. So, you're basically become valuable to the organization when you become fully trained. And they want to be able to fully train you and then still utilize you for a period of time because it takes so long to actually get us to that point, which I appreciate. I think when I was in the regular army, they used readiness levels. Readiness level 3 is the lowest level, and then readiness level 1 is like the most you can be trained. You've done all the tasks in the army for aviation wise, and I think in a total of about 10 flight hours, I was RL1. You go out, some guy would show you how to do something, and you would just regurgitate the same thing after him, and okay, you're signed off on this task. When you get into the regiment, it's hundreds of flight hours over like a 6-month long or 4-month long school where you go to the non-raider crew member course. They pull you out of your battalion, they put you back in the training battalion, and there's an entire company of people there, civilians and active duty guys, which is another great point. Some of my civilian instructors actually flew in the Battle of Mogadishu. They had flown all through different combat operations. They were early on global war on terrorism veterans in the 160th. So they have these decades of experience and knowledge that they are imparting in brand new, not even brand new, like in my case, new crew chiefs to the 160th. So the way they have the program set up and developed there is there's no attrition in the information. We're keeping the history there. Why do we do this thing? We do it because in this scenario, in this combat operation, we needed to do this. So one of the things that you and I talked about was you heard somebody talking about the single engine aerial refueling maneuver, right? I mean, we train that and we developed that technique because we've needed to do that in real life. And we expect, the ground force expects us to be able to do anything that we advertise that we can do with this airframe, even if it's something we haven't done in 10 or 15 or 20 years. If they know that we can do it, we're going to execute it, and we're going to execute it to the best of our ability. So you go through this training course, the NRCM course. You're what's called a basic mission trainee at this point in time, and you finish that, and you go back to your company, and you were like the bottom of the bottom. Doesn't matter what rank you are. It matters that you are the BMT, and there are BMQs, and there are FMQs, and there are FIs, flight instructors, that are in the company. And so I really think that my job was to go out, work on that helicopter, study every waking minute. I don't care if you're eating lunch; you better have your checklist out. You better have the manuals out, reading and studying. And at the end of the day, my job, I think my name was on the bottom of a trash can, and that was my responsibility. Go take out the trash and clean up the office. And after everybody else is done for the day, that's your job. Go clean all this up. Go make sure everything looks good. And then you can go home, but you better be the first one here tomorrow and getting after it, doing PT, staying fit. And you've got to be a self-motivator and be able to work autonomously. And that's what they're looking for. They want, if you're going to succeed there, that's what you need to be able to do.
So I think you answered this, but I had worded this, but like, what in your opinion, what is the biggest difference between the special operations aviator or crew member and the conventional aviator and crew member?
Yeah. So it starts with training. And the special operations community has the funding and the resources to train more. The mission set, what we can do with these helicopters can be done for the most part with the UH-60 Blackhawk, regular Army Blackhawk. It's whether or not units are willing to accept that risk and train for it, or are they not? Well, because of the customers we support, anything that can be done with this aircraft, we've written down, and we have a contractual agreement with the ground force. We can do this. So the resources that we have, the justification we have for the training, and I would say the same question back is, what's the difference between the mission set of a special ground operator versus an infantryman? Now, the regular Army variant is designed to support the regular Army infantrymen, and the MH-60 Blackhawk and the 160th is designed and developed to support the special operator.
And that's one of the things I think we haven't talked about this or said it. You call it customers, which I think is great. But the customers for the 160th, if you've probably seen movies, but it can involve a lot of different people: Navy SEALs, the Ranger Regiment, Special Forces, some other organizations that we don't talk about.
Yeah.
But their customers are pretty vast.
Well, there are
right?
there are precious cargo too, right? I mean, we call them customers for a reason. We are there to support them and what they need. Primarily we worked primarily with two different ground forces, and kind of leave it at that. But we're capable of supporting all of the special operations units.
Yeah, they did. So before we get into more stuff, I have to ask you this. You have to answer this one. I know you can't do it, but you're going to call them customers. So, what was the best customer to work with, and why? And what was your least favorite customer? So, when we say customer, we're talking about it could be the Ranger Regiment or what, I mean, however you want to word it. But what was your favorite customer to work with, and why?
Well, there's probably a couple different answers to this. If we're training, right, the customers that are out of Virginia Beach, they're a lot of fun, right? Because they just want to do their hit, whatever we're doing, whatever training event we're doing. They just want to get it done real quick. Now they're going to do it the standard, and they're going to do what they need to do, but they're not going to do it just to be doing it. We'll run the iterative training. We'll run the training that we need to. They'll get it done, and they're like, "Hey, we're done. We're done for the night. Go do your thing. Go party. See you tomorrow." The customers that are out of North Carolina, the Army variant, they seem to want to do things over and over and over and over and over again. So Army style. But again, both of these organizations are the best in the world at what they do. You can't really say one's better than the other because of how much they train. I will just say, though, in training, it seemed like the Navy guys just kind of wanted to be done with it and then kind of go do their thing. But in the same breath, our Army brothers, the ones in North Carolina, they knew who we are. They knew that we existed, and really, they knew how much work was involved in what we did. I think we just had a little bit of a better relationship with them.
Yeah.
But overseas, the majority of my time was with the Army guys, the Army customers, unless we were doing some sort of unique hostage rescue or something like that. And that can be either one of them as well. So I have more experience working with the Army guys, but in like actual combat. But training with the Navy guys is a lot of fun.
I've heard that a lot when you listen to a lot of podcasts. They say the same thing that everybody that's dealing with the SEALs they seem to have a lot of fun with what they're doing.
Yeah. Well,
they take it serious, but they just seem to be a lot more relaxed. I don't know what the right word is.
And they have they're.
Would you say
without really getting into the structure of how they're organized? Each group, they have different groups within their organization, and some of each individual group has kind of a different personality.
Right.
You've got some guys that are all ex-Rangers, and they're very strict and they're very driven and they're very just Ranger mindset.
Right.
And then you've got surfer dudes or snowboarders, or just the guys who are man, if you were to pluck Nirvana out of one of their band members and just made them fit, they would look and act kind of like these guys.
What was the band member that did that?
I think he was
he went Great Bray, though.
Yeah, he was was it Nirvana? Was it Nirvana?
No.
Don't know.
Yeah, but there was actually it was a guitarist, so that he actually left and became a Green Beret. Yeah, they talked. I listened to a podcast, and it was a former Ranger Regiment guy was talking about working with the the guys from the Red Roof Inn in North Carolina, and said that they got along a lot better with them than they did with the SEALs when they worked with them, because they said a lot of them. What was interesting, a lot of them were former range regiment people that went into that organization, so they kind of knew how they worked. But I don't know where they had the hard time saying the same thing of what was different between them as well. The personalities, I think, a lot what they said, just different personalities.
Yeah. And they're specifically looking for that as well.
Yeah.
Whatever squadron they're in, they're from the best of my understanding of it, they're looking for guys who are not only completely capable of doing the job, but also fit a very specific personality.
Yeah, been interesting.
Yeah.
So he told you who it was. Now that's I knew you'd be able to answer that question in a comfortable way where you didn't run too many terms.
Yeah, I think we got the point across.
I do love the customer. That's great. I call that. So you're at the 160th now. We're moving ahead. You're now crew chiefing.
Well,
you're dapping. You're dapping.
Well, let me back up just a little bit. So I'm 3 weeks out of the non-Raider crew member course, and I'm still a little weary about being this DAP guy. I mean, these guys they have an awesome job, right? But I've just heard about it. I'm like, I'm coming from the regular Army where, there's just so many, just the rules are so restrictive and just everything is so, is so structured. And 3 weeks out of the course, I get a phone call and they said, come into work right now. And, we have the capability of doing like very short notice or no notice missions. And we always take what's called a 0.5 guy with us, who's not going to crew, but who's just kind of there to like get the bird ready and, get the night vision goggles ready and get all the stuff for the actual crew ready when we have one of these no notice missions. And, because I'm a basic mission trainee, I get selected as like a 0.5 guy. And I go on my first deployment 3 weeks out of the NRCM course with the 160th. And we go down to North Carolina and we do some training and we do some sitting and we do some waiting. And I'm like, what's going on, guys? And they're like, shut up. You're the 0.5 guy. You're not even really like a part of this mission. Just be ready for whatever we ask you to do. So here I am just being ready. And, we're down there, we train for a couple of days. I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what we're training for. I'm not flying, right? I'm there just, dropping the guys off and picking them up when they're done. And,
the helicopter just fly out and sit there.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And, my job's to be there when they get back and, hey man, you want me to go get you guys chow or, make sure they have what they need to get through the night and do their training. They train for a couple days. And now we're just sitting here in North Carolina, and what in the world is going? A couple of days we're sitting here. What is going on? And one of the guys said, "Well, we'll either go back home to Fort Campbell tomorrow, or we'll actually go overseas. We'll find out tonight." Okay. So it turns out we get to go overseas, and we fly overseas, and this was the hostage rescue attempt for Kayla Mueller. Which is one of the first American hostages that ISIS, al-Baghdadi, had held captive. And I got to see the regiment at work for the first time. And I knew immediately this is the exact place I needed to be. I knew it before getting there, but then I got to see it. And that is what, absolutely solidified. I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right thing. This is exactly where I need to be. And I'm going to spend the rest of my career here.
How many years did that take you? So what year is that?
So this was summer of 2014, I believe.
So you've been in for a long time now when you finally...
Yeah. I've got So I'm just over 10 years in the Army, or in the military combined between the Air Force and the Army. And this is the first time I've seen special operations do special operations things. And it was mind blowing. all of the players that that surround, that support the ground force. We're just a small aspect of this. There's just an unbelievable team of support looking out for these guys, helping them get this mission done. And that was the first day I saw, a hero get made. And I'm not going to say his name because we haven't discussed this, but one of our DAP pilots ended up getting shot very early on in the mission. He took a round through his leg, and we bring a spare aircraft, for this thing, that if a bird, gets damaged, or somebody needs to get out of the fight, we have another bird that we can put right back in the fight. um, well, he stayed. He threw a tourniquet on his leg in the cockpit, and continued to fly for a number of hours, including multiple engagements on the target, and including air refueling on the way back to where we launched from. So he was awarded the Silver Star during that mission, and to see the response of everybody when he got back, and how the medical response, and how we took care of the situation. I'm 3 weeks out of the NRCM course, overseas with the guys doing the thing, helping them out, and I get to just be a very small part of this operation. And man, it was eye opening for sure. But absolutely solidified that this is the exact place that I needed to be.
So you were happy to be a DAP guy at that point.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah, it was.
It all made sense at that point, right?
That was the brief leading up to them launching on that mission. I was like, okay, all right, I'm sold. Let's. This is where I need to be.
You ain't DAP, you ain't shit. No.
Yeah.
No, but so you worked your way in, like you were in the DAP company for how long then?
About 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you work through all the jobs, you get qualified, you end up going from the guy polishing the night vision goggles to using them,
to giving them to somebody else to say, hey, polish these. Yeah. BMT, BMQ, FMQ, flight instructor, selected to serve as a platoon sergeant and second flight there in Charlie Company 1st Battalion. Best job I ever had in the Army. I mean, just being able to lead that group of men for those few years while I was a platoon sergeant there was hands down the most rewarding thing that I got to do. Number of deployments during that time frame. Some scheduled deployments. Some we had a few more no notice missions that we got to go on. The time of my life, the absolute time of my life. 7 years in the DAP company.
So a lot of flight time during that time, right?
Yeah.
What's the most scared you've been in a Black Hawk?
That's a really good question. There's well, let me answer it this way. I guess it wasn't that it was just because I was in a Black Hawk, but I can remember the first time that we got the crap kicked out of us overseas. And I can remember the decision to go back into the area that we had just gotten the crap kicked out of us in. And I remember telling myself at that point in time, this is the first time in your entire career where you got to sack up and go do this job. And it was not, it was a hard decision to make, man. I mean, we had literally just gotten the crap beat out of us. One of both DAPs had been shot up pretty good. The aircraft in front of us has taken multiple rounds, and including a round into its tail rotor gearbox, which is, if you don't have to know everything about helicopters, but that's probably the single most important thing on the bird. If that tail rotor stops spinning, it's going to be a bad day. The FMQ crew chief in that bird has had his rifle literally shot out of his hands He had taken his foregrip handoff to make a call on the radio, and a round pinged off his barrel of his rifle. Um, our aircraft is taking its fair share of rounds at the time, and we literally turned the flight around after one of the ground force guys has taken a round as well. So we're doing a vehicle interdiction at this time against an ISIS fighter, ISIS leader, and we abort the vehicle interdiction because of the status that we're in, and we make it back across the FLOT, the forward line of troops, which hasn't been around since basically World War II. Now we're fighting an enemy that actually has a clear line of delineation, and we get back to the good side of the FLOT, and we report up the damage, and we make sure the ground force guy is taken care of, and we call back to the house, and they said, well, stay right there. That spare helicopter that we have, we're going to bring that out to you, and you guys are going to go back out, and you guys are going to execute the mission. And at that point in time, I've done the battle damage assessment on my helicopter. We have basically taken inventory of our situation, and we're not out of the fight, but it's not great right now. And when they said, just stay right there, the one that's got the bullet hole in the tail rotor gearbox, we'll bring you another helicopter, but everybody else is going back out, and you're going to go hit this target. And that's when the probably the only time in my military career where I really had to make the choice. I had to tell myself, this is what we do. The option of quitting does not exist. You have a job to do. We're getting back in this bird. We're going back over there, and we're gonna do our job. And we're operating on older ROE rules at the time, rules of engagement. Have to see where the rounds are coming from. You have to positively identify who's engaging you. And so we were a little hamstrung in our initial attempt in the vehicle interdiction. But I think we all knew that when we went back over there, that it was going to be a different story. Turns out that they continued to game plan and figure out what other options were, and they said that we weren't going to actually go back to get them on that mission. We would live to fight another day on that one. So now we have a helicopter out in the middle of the desert that's got a tail rotor gearbox that's got a big hole in it, and all the oil's drained out of it. Well, what do we do with this thing? And I kid you not, the downed aircraft recovery team comes out, and they show up, and they bring a tail rotor gearbox with them, which, without getting into the details, it is a lot of work to replace a major gearbox component like this on a helicopter, even in a hangar at an airfield, much less literally in the middle of the desert. So we all kind of get together and talk about it, and we say, you know what, we're not doing this. Fill the gearbox up with oil, duct tape the hole. We're going to get this thing home. And sure enough, we did. And we leapfrogged that helicopter multiple times. We would take off, the oil would drain out, all the lights would come on. So we would do a precautionary landing. It'd be out of oil. So, clean it up, put more duct tape on it, fill it back up with oil. We did that 2 or 3 times, and got the bird back to the fob that we were at, and brought the bird home.
Just another
day, man. But I'll tell you, there's countless stories of night stalkers going through events like this, and the way they respond in those situations, the never quit attitude. I have to mention the other crew chief that didn't have his rifle shot out of his hand. Pulled the other guy back in the aircraft, started, checking him, making sure he was okay. I mean, just the way they respond in these situations that, without the training, there's people can react a number of different ways. Well, that's not acceptable for us. We have a standard to live by, even when there's a bad day.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, lots of lots of great stories like that. Going out, taking the fight to the enemy, um, putting the ground force on the X, putting the customers on the X, excuse me. And then as a DAP guy, our job is to stay over the target the whole time. And when the ground force needs fire support, they point it out, they back up, and they let us off the leash, and we go in and we neutralize whatever threat that's bothering them. So it's one of the best feelings you have is when the ground force gets in trouble and they need some help, and we can go in and we can pull them out of a jam, or help them get out of a jam, and then getting back to the base and cheers in and drinking beers and having a good time and
all good stories.
Yeah.
So the DAP, has more firepower than the Little Bird, right?
Yes. The answer to that question is yes. Without going into the details and the capabilities of the birds, it's a bigger airframe.
Right.
It can hold more.
Right.
So yeah, with the 30 millimeter that's on it is the same cannon that's on the Apache. Okay. The rocket pod, we can put Hellfires on it. So we normally run rockets on one bird and Hellfires on another bird. Both birds will have the 30 millimeter chain gun and both miniguns. So yeah, it can lay it down pretty good if it needs to.
So was there a party that when you did that, you dropped the customers off, you're kind of hoping that something happens a little bit like, oh, God,
always.
I want them to call
always.
Me. So now you know why those guys were sitting
always.
in the corner acting all weird and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They were just waiting for shit to happen.
I mean, if we go out and we circle around a target all night long and we don't get to shoot, we're bored.
Yeah, they come back to
I'm like, come on, can you guys not pick a fight with somebody, please? Can you not be so good at your job that we don't get to do anything?
Can you just point something out that we can fire these rockets
at,
please?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's may have happened a couple times too, It's we always like to shoot. I mean, that's why we're there. So if we don't get to do it, then kind of feel a little unfulfilled.
I do love the story of just leapfrogging it back, getting it in there. It's like that's. What were the pilots thinking? They're just like, hey, we're just going to do this.
Well, we had a maintenance test pilot come out with us. Old Lackadaisical, we called him. Great guy. And the flight lead stayed. So it was the two flight leads. And, they had told the crew chiefs, it was the guy that had the rifle shot out of his hand and the other guy. And they said, you guys don't need to ride in this bird. We'll do this. And they said, hell no, we're the crew chiefs. We're taking this bird home with you. So all four of them climbed into that helicopter and they took off. They ran it up. Tail rotor's not smoking. It's not coming off. We're just assessing the situation as we go. We're making real-time decisions, and the fact that our organization trusts us to make these decisions is another delineating factor of how the special operations community works versus, the regular, conventional Army. I think what we would have seen, in fact, I've seen this in the regular Army, you would have left that helicopter there and they would have, brought a truck in, or they would have tried to sling load it out, or but that's not our mindset. Men, weapon, and equipment, bring it home. So. Right.
And you hear stories if you research or get on the internet and read about some stuff that the 160th and the special operations community has been doing. It's not like I shared that story about the aerial refueling, which is nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's stuff like that definitely, I think the level of training that you guys are at, it's like you said, you're accepting a risk, but it's not as big a risk because the risk has been you kind of mitigated it with all the training and experience you guys have had, and that mindset, which is exactly what you need at that.
I think a lot of people see what we do. Some of the stuff is leaked out, and you see different videos post up on social media, and you got all kinds of comments going on there. Oh, this is reckless. This is dangerous. Yeah. Why do you need to do this kind of stuff? Well, from the sense of not understanding how much we do it and what the need is, I could totally understand looking at that going, man, that's a reckless thing. Why would you ever do that? But, when you're on the other side, when you're in the organization and go, there is a need for this, you just might not understand what that need is. It justifies why we're doing it. Why do we train the way we fight? Why do we train this hard? And it's so when we go do it in the real world, it's just another day.
All right. That's what makes you guys different. I mean, I think that answers the question. Throughout the process, you answer that one question about what makes the conventional Army different than the special operations community. I think you hit that nail on the head. So you spend a lot of time in the DAP. You get to go to another company, head over
Yep.
to Fox
I
company.
get the Delta Company,
Okay,
D1.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
So 7 years, finished up my time there as a platoon sergeant. I actually got to start my platoon sergeant time as a senior staff sergeant. Uh, and so by the time I'm done with my platoon sergeant time, I'm only a year into my sergeant first class time. And I'm not getting looked at for 8 right now. So, the organization can do one of two things. They can say, we appreciate all your hard work here. We don't have a need for you. See you later. Or, every year they do this lay down. They decide where the different E7s and E8s and E9s are going to go. They wanted to keep me in the organization. So I moved over to Skirtland, is what we called it. So the DAP guys would always call the assault guys skirts. And like, it's just in a feminine, teasing manner, right? They were the guys that all had the long hair and the clean uniforms and looked good, and so we all called them prima donnas because we're the dirty knuckle dragon, DAP guys over here. We work in the same hangar, so a lot of smack talking back and forth with each other. When you're the new guy, they'll send you down there and they'll ball you up and drag you back to the other side of the hangar. But there's no love lost between the two of us. But we know iron sharpens iron, and that is as much crap talking we're saying to each other. Both roles are vital. These are the guys who are actually putting the customers in their helicopter and delivering them to the X, and we're there watching over everybody. So now I get to go do the other side of it. I get to be the crew chief who's in the helicopter with the ground force and actually taking them to the target. The job that I did right there during that time was as the production control in COIC, which means I basically ran the entire maintenance program for the company, which this flight company is the largest single flight company in the U.S. Army. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to stop flying at the time. I maintained my my FMQ and FI status and was able to help train guys when I got there as well. And I got to deploy with them a handful of times as well. I did take about a year's hiatus from deploying as I served as a casualty assistance officer for an aircraft accident that we had that we lost a couple of guys on. So taking care of one of the family members, one of the spouses that was married there. So during that time, no deployments. My job, my life, my world is surrounded around taking care of this spouse and being her liaison from the military to her. So the hardest job I think I've ever done in the military. But also very rewarding knowing that it was one of us making sure that she was taken care of. And that's another delineating factor between the regular Army and the special operations community is we take care of each other even in tragedy. We recently had an aircraft go down on Veterans Day this last year in the Mediterranean. And as tragic as it is and as hurtful as it is, a silver lining to this is that I know, and the families know that they're going to be taken care of literally for the rest of their lives. Whatever the need is, that they have another family that they can rely on to make sure that they're taken care of.
So you're still in contact with the widow from
yes.
the widow?
Yeah.
And she's doing well now?
She's doing well. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a tough.
Yeah. Again, it's
that's a.
This kind of translates into another thing that we talked about is just like veterans and how they cope with stress and how they cope with different events in life. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot about I learned a lot about myself. This was everybody says you stay in aviation long enough, you stay in the military long enough, you're going to experience loss. You're going to experience some sort of tragedy. Unfortunately for me, I had been in the military a long time before this happened. Even through all the years of, the 2-year long deployments and the Air Force deployments and Just flying in general is inherently dangerous. I hadn't experienced this. Um, and this is the first time it happened. This was in August of 2020. Um, and they had a DAP accident out in San Clemente Island, training out there, and the two crew chiefs died. So I was picked to be the casualty assistance officer for Tyler's wife, and my focus was on her, and that was my job. And I was going to be good at my job, and I was going to make sure she was taken care of. Um, However, I didn't grieve because this was my job at the time, and her needs were more important than mine. And boy, did I pay for that. Probably a year later, I was just working out one day, and it hit me like a truck. Just all this grief came back, and the sadness, and all of this pain, just I mean, it hit me hard. I mean, I'm a crying snotty mess in the gym at my house, just you know thinking about this accident and the loss of my friends. And I learned a very valuable lesson about that I've definitely applied to in this most recent accident, is that it's okay to grieve. And matter of fact, it's not okay to grieve, it's a requirement to grieve. People who have experienced tragedy and loss, who don't afford themselves the opportunity to actually go through that process, will inevitably pay for it dearly later down the road. So, a message to anybody who might be struggling with that, is definitely make sure you go through that process. Make sure you uh, we're special operations guys, right? We're men, and you don't even have to be a special operations guy. We're just men in general, right? Suck it up, uh, push your feelings down, move them to the back, figure out what your job is, and go do it. Right? Nobody cares. Um, yes, but don't don't do it to the detriment of your own health, right? And your own mental stability and your mental well being,
Right.
because it will come back to hit you. And lesson learned from me. If anybody can take something from that and apply it to their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with grieving. Is a lot of times, especially as a man, number one, you're not supposed to have feelings. You're not supposed to show your emotion, which is bullshit. And then the other part about it is some organizations that you're in, you're supposed to feel like you're indifferent, or you don't you're not scared, or you're not sad. That's bullshit as well. And unfortunately, the military does create that. No matter what your job is, at what level, you're not. A lot of people. How many times you just told like, "Suck it up"? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It happens. That's what you think was going to happen. Blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, you said it better than I could. Is that you just have to definitely grieve, and I think a lot of people just don't do that. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, I think I do know why. Like sometimes when you don't want to do it, grieving sucks. Right?
Yeah.
It's painful. It hurts.
Yeah.
But when you get through that hurt, it feels a lot better on the other end. And if you don't ever feel that hurt or get in touch with it, like you said, you're right. You end up doing stuff that's unhealthy, and just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Mental health issues from with the military, are are serious issues. We're seeing a lot of people pay, um, and struggle with their mental well being post military, for a lot of different reasons. And I think I have a unique perspective on a way to consider dealing with it, and it is that the human body is an extremely resilient machine, um, and can experience a lot of trauma and a lot of damage to it, and it can heal itself. The secret behind it, though, is staying fit. And when I say fit, a lot of people just automatically assume like physical fitness, and that's part of it. I think we should stay physically fit, but um, emotionally fit, spiritually fit, your overall fitness, your mind, your heart, your soul, your body. Um, when when your body is fit, it can heal itself better than in any other stage. If you were not fit, it's going to take years and years, if ever, to heal from the trauma or the injury that you've experienced. Um, and another point to that is that I think a lot of guys struggle when they leave the military because of because their identities have been tied up in what they did in the military and for the military. Instead of having an identity that is rooted in something that is bigger than the military. For me personally, it's my it's my Christian belief that allows me to say that whether I succeed or fail at this thing, whether I am a part of this thing or not, that um, my identity is not shaken. It's rooted in something that is bigger than all of that. So, whatever that may be for a veteran, I'm not saying that veterans have to go be a Christian right now, but I am saying for me personally that is part of the equation of becoming fit and then having an identity that is rooted in something that is bigger than just this thing you do as a profession.
No, 100%. I mean, like, one of the questions I've asked is, what's the hard, it got to be, what was the hardest part about you retiring? Was it your losing your job,
Mm.
losing your friends, or losing your identity? Because
Yeah.
those are really the three things that
Yeah.
affect service members, because those three things happen
Right.
the minute you leave active duty,
That's
right?
right.
Most of the time you move from a different, 90% of the time, I don't know what the statistics are, but you move away from where you're at, move to a whole different place. So there you lost your friends. Your friends are doing something different. You lost your job.
Yep.
Literally lost your job.
Yep.
And then you lost your identity, which a lot of us were. I'm an Army officer. I was a crew chief, those type of things. So, but like you said, there's having your identity, understanding your identity. You can always change your identity, right? This is what you always tell veterans: like you can be a really good dad, like you weren't being a great dad.
Well,
I'm not saying you, but for 20 years now, your identity could be dad, or your identity can now be a husband, or things like that.
I would challenge that just a little bit to then say, what happens if you're no longer a dad? Or what happens if you're no longer a husband?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It does. It can move to anything. Your identity does. Your identity is not tied to one thing, right? Your identity could be a friend. Your identity could be a son. I mean, there's all. That's what I'm saying. I guess I'm trying to say is, like, you can't. Maybe I'm saying it this way. You don't have to throw it onto that. Your identity can always change, right? It's like the same thing. You can always get. You can, like, I never. What you thought you were going to be for the rest of your life, you're never going to be there. That's the reality of it, right? But it can change. The same thing with the job, right? Your job, you're going to find a job. You don't how many people have watched different jobs you've had? I mean, you've been a civil engineering apprentice.
Yeah.
You've done some other bounce around jobs. You're a financial guy now. You were a crew chief.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different things you could do it, but. And then, your friends, you can find different friends. But I think the problem with the military is all those three things are so important and so intense that a lot of us, I feel like those three things are like all we know, right? I'm an Army guy.
Yeah.
I do this job, and these are my buddies, my platoon, my guys.
Yeah.
And that's all you know. And it's super intense. And when it's gone, you don't know what to do.
Right. I would say that maybe there's a slight difference between identity and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, my purpose right now is to be, a good husband and a good father, and really good at the profession that I do right now. That's kind of my purpose, but that's not my identity. I think your identity should be in something that cannot be taken away from you, and when that's the case, when you change something in your life, which will inevitably happen. If you're in the military, you lose your job, your friends, and your home, right? Because most guys move away, right? What was the third one? Your job, your friends. Your job, your friends, your career.
Your identity. I mean, you can't. I mean, I know I 100% agree with you, but I feel like the time when you're looking at it, when you are doing that, your identity was a wants to see a night soccer.
Well,
Hard. I mean, maybe not. I mean, but
Yeah.
you have it.
It was
you have a different healthy
it was
way.
hard.
Yeah.
It was hard to make sure that I remembered that one day this will be gone.
Yep.
Right. One day I will not be able to say that I am this thing, right? Or that I have this job, or that fill in that blank with anything.
Yep.
And I think this is one of the reasons why veterans struggle a lot after the military, is because it is you're going through 2 or 3 of the largest stressors that you can experience in life. You're changing careers, you're moving, you're selling a home maybe. These are huge events. You're leaving your friends potentially, who I miss dearly.
Right.
If I never did the job again, okay. I mean, that sucks because it was a great job, but I'm going to remember the homies. Like, we are going to be brothers for for as long as we live. I can pick up the phone. I can call them. Doesn't matter what time of night it is. They can do the same to me. We will always be there for each other. Right. But inevitably, at some point in time, that is going to be gone. And so I would challenge guys to actually try to find something that they can root their identity in, that cannot be taken from them.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, right? Like I said, for me, it's my Christian faith. But I don't know what the other options are, but I'm not going to sit here and say this is the only option.
No, I think what you're saying is perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
This is why I love these conversations. It is right. You have it in a healthy way. You're seeing it in a healthy way. You understand the purpose. That's exactly right. But there's a lot of us that, at the time we didn't do that.
Right.
That's what our identity was. And
Right.
like you said before, you throw that on top of it. There's not a lot of talk that nobody's really talking to soldiers or sailors about that. They're that's not one of the things they're talking about when you get out either. They're talking about helping you get a job, but they're not talking about finding a different purpose, the same purpose, the same love that you had for something else. You can find that elsewhere. You know what I mean? But you are right. Finding something that can be never taken away from you. That's I don't know if everybody has that. That's always a good thing to be.
Well, a shameless plug is Jesus Christ is always there for you.
There you go.
So
yeah, exactly. No, that's not a shameless plug. That's that's why we have all these conversations with veterans, because people have it in different ways, and that works for you, and that works for a lot of people, and hopefully somebody's listening that's not working for them, and that may be something that they say, "Oh,
whatever." Just understand that what you do is not necessarily who you are.
Yeah.
Because if you do, if that is your thought process, then the moment that's taking away from you, what do you do? Well, what we're seeing most of the time with veterans is depression, unfulfilled lives, and ultimately, in some cases, ending in suicide. And I understand how they're getting there. They've had this thing taken away from them that meant so much to them at one point in time, as it should, right? As your service should. It should mean a lot to you, but not to the extent in which it costs you the ultimate price.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying. I mean, it's great advice. I mean, I'm glad I'd rather talk about this for this other than some of the things we talked about. But I mean, it is true that's the thing. But this is what's great about having these conversations as men, is to talk about these things, because a lot of people don't. It's like they're going to tell you don't understand. I did this. Yeah, well, everybody does understand. But it ultimately does go away. A lot of everything that you have in life really goes away. You know what I mean? In some aspect, like, as a parent, like you're always a parent, but my level of a parent, you have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old. I have a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 19-year-old. My time as a parent is different, right? If I'm all just a parent, those, I'm not in my kid's life like I was when they were 12 and 8.
Sure.
That goes away. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
your job when you retire,
how does that affect you? Right.
Oh yeah, exactly. But exactly. But that's the thing, is like, it's taken a long time for me to have those conversations with people and talk about it. But it's hard to get people to listen to. That's what happens. I mean, people are like, oh, I love to work. I'm 52 years old. Reality, I have 10 or 15 more years, and then I'm not working. Right. I've worked since I was 13. I got to find something else to do. I mean, it's always, and the message is it's always out there. I think that's the thing, is like, how you deal with it is how you deal with it. How I deal with it is how I do it, but there's no wrong way, as long as you're not falling down that trap like you
Right.
talked about, that you put this identity on yourself and think that you're never going to find something else.
I'm a lesser person because I'm no longer
Yeah.
doing this thing.
Yeah, and
And that is not the truth.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
Because you see that with. Think about the levels. A lot of the military people go from the level of responsibility they've had, what they've seen, and all of a sudden they're like, I make a joke all the time. I watch paint dry. Like I never. That's what I really do.
Yeah.
Like make sure it dries the right way. Never when I was 13 years old to be like, oh gosh, I'm going to work for the largest chemical company and I'm going to do this. But I enjoy it.
Right.
Your life can change. You just have to be open to the change. You have to work towards the change. But I think a lot of veterans, we get, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know why it is, but a lot of us are focused on those three things. And like the same thing with friends. Our friends are, your friends in the military are going to change, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just out 20, you got out last year, right?
Yeah.
So you're still close 5 years from now. Maybe not, but you have other friends. You've got, two friends that are in the, came watching right now. You have, your group here. That's the message I try to tell the veterans. You're going to find new.
Yeah.
New
Shout out to the jack wagons, and they'll know who that they are. So
yeah, then the job is you can find another job. That's one of the things that you just got to pursue what you want to do. But
yeah,
that's a super healthy way to look at it.
I think so. And it's definitely worked for me. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers and I figured everything out, but I think it's something that can and will resonate with a lot of people. I hope somebody can just take that and kind of run with it.
Yeah, Nate, pull that up. Pull up. Dan's getting some comments from Pamela. It looks like.
Yeah, that's my Aunt Pam. Hey, Aunt Pam.
So proud of our nephew. He makes a difference for good in a broken world. And then look at you getting all these props. I love it.
Yeah.
Great information, advice, Dan. Proud to call you a friend, brother. Is he one of the jack wagons?
Nope. That's Dr. John. He is a veteran as well. And to talk just a little bit about hunting for a second, Dr. John and my uncle, Aunt Pam's husband, his name is Roger, and their two sons, son and son-in-law, they had been going out to Kansas for a number of years. They had a connection out in western Kansas, and they had been hunting, a lot of property out there. And just shooting some beautiful deer, just these magnificent buck. And so they invite me to go hunting with them, bow hunting one year. I get into the lottery. I win a tag. And, I go out and I buy a bow about 6 months prior. And this is like my first experience hunting. This is, golly, it's got to be 10 years or so ago. So probably when I started to get into hunting. And, practice shooting my bow, get it all dialed in. Never really been hunting before. And they take me out to West Kansas. And, they're putting me around. This is the last day of the hunt. And I've harvested a doe, and I've seen some buck walk by, and I've just seen what these guys have harvested here, and that I don't want these guys to make fun of me if I shoot this one. So I let a lot of deer walk, and on the last day of the hunt, the sun's starting to go down, and there's a couple doe right in front of my stand, and I'm hooked up with my arrow, ready to. I said, I'm not leaving the tag out here, so I'm going to take meat home. And as I'm about to start pulling some pressure back on the bow, I see something move out of the corner of my eye. And this massive buck just walks right out of the tree line, 34 yards away from me and quarters into me. And I take the shot and clean shot on him and harvest it. I call my cousin and I said, hey, man, I tagged out, want to come give me a hand. And at this point in time, by the time he gets out there, the sun's gone down. And I can't impress on you how much these guys know all of the deer in this area. They've seen them. They've named them. They live, breathe, eat hunting deer out in West Kansas. And he walks out and he takes one sweep with his light across the deer who's laying on the ground, and he starts freaking out. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, did I shoot an animal that I was not supposed to shoot?
Did I shoot somebody's pet?
Do I need to go get a shovel and start burying this thing? So he picks up the phone and he's calling his dad, my uncle, and he's like, Dan shot hashtag. And I'm like, what is a hashtag? And what are you talking about?
Hashtag he's going to jail.
I'm trying to act, and I'm trying to talk to him. He's ignoring me. He's freaking out. The reason why I tell this story is because Dr. John, who made this comment on here, had been hunting this deer for a number of years. He was one of the first guys to ever see the deer and has captured him throughout his life for a number of years and had just never had a good opportunity to take the shot on the deer. And he was so gracious and so kind about it. But I know deep down in his soul, he's never going to invite me to go hunting again, ever.
He's like
it's not going to happen.
He's like, hashtag I hate Dan.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Dr. John, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you not giving me a hard time about that. But yeah, it was that's my great hunting story.
So when's have you been hunting with your buddy over here? Yeah.
I haven't been with Matt. Matt is an avid duck hunter, which I have done once or twice in my life, but I really just haven't had the time right now, transitioning out of the Army and into the this new civilian job.
He's got you working hard at the financial.
Man, yeah, exactly. He calls me new shoes. He calls me new shoes, and he wrote my name on his trash can in the office.
Is he hazing you like you guys did in the 160th?
Yeah, well, he's trying to, but the 160th is really good at it. So
it was like I fell for all those pranks and tricks.
It's something that I want to do. I've got two brothers-in-law that live locally, and one of them owns some land down in Meigs County, a little hunting cabin on it. So been down there a couple of times, and dude, that is definitely a case of beer right there.
Look at that! These things are picking up all kinds of stuff going on there.
Yeah, so I like to get out there and head down and just spend some time with the boys and kind of disconnect. And the cell signal doesn't work out there, which is really awesome. And just disconnect from life just a little bit. Maybe for an evening or overnight or something like that, get a hunt in. But that quiet is what I look for and what I really appreciate now, because for the last 11 years of my military career in the special operations community has been really loud. So peace and quiet is good for you every once in a while.
So you up for a couple more questions? I know we're going long.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm gonna check. There's some newer ones I'm gonna throw at you.
Okay.
Get your chance, because I think you're perfect for it. So there's one thing you could become an expert at. What would it be?
That's a really good question. What'd you say?
I said I know what it is.
Making fun. No.
Yeah. Matt wants me to say being the best financial advisor in the state.
I mean, open up. I mean, like playing guitar. I mean, what? I mean, I think they've been actually what.
I think that answer probably changes throughout life. As we go through different life stages, I think we kind of want to be the best at different things. And when I was in the 160th, I wanted to be the best crew chief in the 160th. And every one of those crew chiefs there thought that. And every one of the pilots there thinks the same thing. They want to be the best pilot. So I think that answer for me right now is being the best husband and father I can be for my family. They sacrificed a lot. They never complained. They never gave me a hard time. They were 100% supportive of all 15 of those deployments that I did in the 160th, right? And some of those were phone calls in the middle of the night where I had to get up and leave, and my kids didn't see me for X number of time. Some of them there's one incident where I came home and literally within 24 hours got the call and I was out the door again for another no notice deployment. So the thing I want to be the best at right now is being present with my family. And that doesn't mean just physically being present. It means participating in their lives and building all the memories that we lost opportunities to make.
Your wife's gonna be happy. She's gonna be happy with that answer.
Yeah, honey.
That's a good.
Listen to that, all right?
Yeah, that was a great answer. Now he's like scripted. He has it written out. Last question.
Okay.
Be a little less serious, hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully you don't say you're gonna write a book about this, but if you could publish a book about any subject, what would it be?
It's really funny you asked me that. I would on. I know you kind of want a less serious answer.
No, I want no. I'm joking.
Um,
I want a serious answer. That's fine. I'm joking.
Identity.
Yeah.
I would write it up. I would write a book on identity, and I think that there is a across the spectrum of people, in at least in the United States, I think that identity is one thing that so many people struggle with. I don't know why that's the case. I want to research it, and I want to learn more about it. But I think if I could write a book on anything, I would write it on identity.
Great answer. Great answer. That's not too bad.
Yeah, man, it's great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, but no, thanks for coming. Thanks for finally getting to meet you. We've talked a couple times and DM'd and text, and it's been an honor to have you down in the basement. Sorry I couldn't drink with you.
Man, that's a bummer.
I would. I mean, we'll make it up. You're
Okay.
always welcome to come back at other times.
Okay.
Just come on time this time, unlike other people. But I do want to thank you for your service. I want to thank your family. You know, your wife and 2 kids for their sacrifice. You've been pretty busy here for the past 20 years or so. So thank you for your service. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And it's awesome to hear you come out and have a great, someone that's getting out of the military. You have a great frame of mind and a good spot. It's awesome to have. And thanks for the good advice you've shared. We'll end it with a quote, another nice soccer quote.
Okay.
I'm not going to redo the whole the thing, but this is a short one. I went with the long one, but this is one you've probably heard. It's said a lot in the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Death waits in the dark.
That's right.
So it's with some of the stories, and then we've been also finishing with a little mental health quote as well. As like, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people, and that's from Carl Jung. So as we end every episode after thanking you for coming on, I really, really appreciate it and appreciate your honesty and your stories and insight. It's awesome to finally meet you. I can't thank you enough. But we're going to tonight honor a veteran who unfortunately took their life. Tonight we're going to honor U.S. Army Specialist Katrina Weichel, 29 years old. Katrina took her life on March 13, 2023 while stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. Katrina was born March 12, 1994 in Buffalo, New York, and graduated from Valley Central High School in 2012. Kate attended SUNY Albany for a short time prior to enlisting in the United States Army in 2019. After completing basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, Kate completed advanced individual training and became a military police officer. Kate was assigned to the 64th Military Police Company at Fort Hood, Texas. While assigned with the 64th MP Company, she deployed to Poland and Germany in 2020. Kate had a deep love for all kinds of music, video gaming, fishing with her family, sports, and riding bikes. Kate followed in her dad's footsteps by playing bass guitar, and she shared her brother's deep love of music. Kate is survived by her parents, Joseph and Susanna, brother Thomas, spouse Jessica, her children Oliver, Dexter, and Penelope, uncles Christopher and Charles, aunts Mary and Janet, and numerous other family members. If you are a veteran or you know someone that is considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 and then press 1, or you can text 838-255, or you can also chat now at the veteranscrisishotline.net/chat. Again, thank you for coming on. Thanks for a lot of the first. Next time we have you on, we'll have you lose the collar.
I'll show up a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, so this is all for future guests. The next one's got to come in here with a tie. We'll get a smoking coat, but we're gonna end episode 49. We'll see everybody, or 48. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks with episode 49. Again, Dan, thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
No problem. My pleasure.